I'm cultivating immortality with the science of mortals. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, Silver Pole River. Ideals are beautiful, but reality is cruel. With Luo Hong's current means, it will take more than 1,000 years to imprint all the silver runes that make up his body from the deep layer of his soul to the surface. Of course, if he can find a way to directly use the deep silver runes, he can bypass this step. After thinking for a long time, Luo Hong felt that he should not give up easily, but he couldn't just go in and ignore the original plan. In the short term, you are the only one who can make me make a breakthrough in silver runes. After making the final decision, Luo Hong took out the Shiangxin fruit from the Wanbao bag, which he had won at the cost of offending the 10 major sects of Dajin. After staring at the fruit for a while, Luo Hong suddenly flicked his sleeves and sent a sound transmission talisman outside the cave. After taking the Shiangxin fruit, he cannot be disturbed, otherwise it is easy to exit the wonderful state of heaven and man induction, so Luo Hong had to notify Linghu Patriarch to prevent the other party from looking for him because of the matter of the devil soul. After making the necessary arrangements, Luo Hong adjusted his mind and body and swallowed the Shiangxin fruit in 2 or 3 bites according to what Fairy Yin said. The taste of Shiangxin fruit was as bland as water, and after it entered his stomach, there was no agitation of spiritual energy like when taking top-grade spiritual fruits. It was just mediocre. But before Luo Hong could even think of any doubts, a vague feeling of dizziness came over him. Suddenly, Luo Hong felt his soul leaving his body, flying higher and higher, directly penetrating the restrictions of the cave, and going straight into the sky. As he got closer to the boundary wall, the magnificent power of heaven became heavier and heavier on him. Just when Luo Hong was about to collapse, a layer of green light suddenly appeared around him. At this moment, like a fish entering water, the burden on Luo Hong suddenly disappeared. But soon another strange change occurred, and his illusory body quickly dissipated, as if it was about to merge into the sky. With this change, Luo Hong's consciousness gradually became blurred, and he lost his perception of time and space. After an unknown amount of time, in the haze, Luo Hong saw a strange scene. At this moment, he seemed to be standing above all living beings, sinking in a river composed of countless silver tadpoles. The breath of eternity enveloped him, making him want to fall asleep. Fortunately, the last bit of intelligence in his soul prevented him from falling asleep. Luo Hong vaguely remembered that he came here to find an answer to the runes around him. Repeating this thought over and over again, Luo Hong didn't know how long he had been floating in the long river of silver tadpoles, until the line under him turned into an ocean. A multi-eyed monster as huge as an island broke through the sea and roared deafeningly at the sky. At this time, Luo Hong, who had been waiting until now, finally saw a slight change in the long river of silver tadpoles. I saw a silver tadpole separated from the long river and slowly floated down. At first, there was nothing unusual, but as it fell, it actually began to decompose. And the thing it separated was the silver rune that Luo Hong had been studying. Staring blankly at the numerous silver runes falling, Luo Hong suddenly seemed to have remembered something, and suddenly became alert. Without thinking, Luo Hong concentrated all his energy, observing and recording the changes of the silver runes, trying to remember its own appearance, the appearance of all the silver runes produced after decomposition, its internal structure, and all other information in his mind. This process was as if the heavenly Dao had broken open its own secrets, crushed them, and placed them in front of Luo Hong. If he didn't accept them all, he would be ignoring the kindness of the heavenly Dao. And the next moment Luo Hong found himself, the long river of silver runes shook violently, and its flow rate suddenly increased 10 times, surging violently as if it was self-checking. At this time, a bunch of silver runes stained with green light began to flash slightly, and their light became dimmer and dimmer. Finally, when a golden light pierced, Luo Hong once again sensed the power of heaven and earth, and his body fell to the ground suddenly. The speed of falling was many times faster than the speed of ascending. Luo Hong did not see the scenery along the way at all. He could only vaguely feel the reorganization of his body. When Luo Hong suddenly left the long river of silver tadpoles, it seemed that he knew that he could not catch the spire of heaven. The multi-eyed sea monster that caused the change suddenly became the target of the heaven's anger. The black calamity cloud suddenly rolled and doubled in size. After 9 red calamity thunders were struck in succession, the blue thunderball fell from the cloud, which shocked the monster that thought it had survived the transformation thunder calamity. In the meeting hall of Huangfeng Valley, Linghu Patriarch sat opposite another nascent soul cultivator. On the table were spiritual tea and spiritual fruits full of spiritual energy. Looking at the visitor in front of him, Linghu Patriarch did not feel any surprise in his heart. After all, every time Luo Hong came back, he would cause some trouble. It was common for people to come to his door. How to deal with it? Linghu Patriarch was already familiar with it. Compared to the calm and composed Linghu Patriarch, Luo Hong, who was sitting opposite him, seemed much more anxious. After taking a sip of the spiritual tea in a ceremonial manner, he said in a deep voice, "Brother Linghu, now that demon has swallowed the nascent souls of 6 or 7 fellow Daoists, its ferocity has greatly increased. If it is not eradicated soon, it will inevitably bring disaster to the entire Xianan. By then, Huangfeng Valley will inevitably be affected. I also ask your sect's fellow Daoist Luo to join our organization's demon suppression team to discuss the plan to destroy the demon." Alas, Brother Luo was right. Not only did the demon soul escape from the falling demon valley, it also caused such a big commotion. Linghu Patriarch sighed in his heart. Although he also felt that Luo Hong should take action at this time, thinking of the sound transmission note he received a year ago, he could only find a way to refuse. This junior brother Luo is only a cultivator in the early nascent soul stage, while the demon suppression team not only has the 3 great cultivators of Xianan, but also more than 10 fellow cultivators in the middle stage. I don't think junior brother Luo is missing. When Luo Hong heard this, his face became even more anxious, and he quickly said, "Brother Linghu, you and I both know the strength of fellow Daoist Luo. Anyway, Long is ashamed of himself. Moreover, so far, only fellow Daoist Luo has killed such monsters. The demon suppression team cannot lack him. Long knows that Brother Linghu is also a man who understands the righteousness of the cause. I wonder if there is any difficulty?" Ancestor Linghu was waiting for Luo Hong to ask this. He immediately showed an embarrassment, and after hesitating for a while, he said, "To be honest, junior brother Luo has been recuperating in the cave since he came back from the fallen demon valley. Before closing the cave, he asked me to recall the disciples of the Huangfeng Valley who were outside. If the demon soul attacks, we can only rely on the big formation to defend ourselves." Luo Hong was stunned when he heard this. Although he didn't believe it in his heart, he had also heard about the unusual movements of the Yellow Maple Valley in recent years. It was indeed as Elder Linghu said, they were in a cowardly posture. But Alliance leader Wei clearly told us that after fellow Daoist Luo killed the huge ancient demon, although his aura was not smooth, his true essence was not damaged, so he was fine. Chapter 527 Great Gains. It was indeed not a big deal at the time, but not long after junior brother Luo returned to the sect, he found himself invaded by the other party's original demonic energy. I think it should be the fatal blow released by the ancient demon before his death. If left alone, he might be possessed by the demon, so joining the demon killing team is really beyond my ability. Eldling who said the prepared excuse, shaking his head and sighing, pretending to be helpless. Luo Hong also knew how powerful the ancient demons were. He was already shocked that Luo Hong could kill one of them with his early nascent soul cultivation. After learning that Luo Hong had paid a huge price for this, he felt that it was reasonable, and believed it at the moment. Well, since fellow Daoist Luo has such difficulties, Long will not force it. Speaking of which, fellow Daoist Luo also encountered this difficulty for the great cause of eliminating demons. If you have any needs, please speak up, Brother Linghu. Although our Xi'an Dao League does not have a late stage great cultivator, it is also a small family. Since he came here, Luo Hong naturally cannot return empty-handed. Even if he cannot ask Luo Hong to take action, it is also a gain to make friends with the other party. Haha, Alliance leader Long is polite. Today's relationship, I Huang. Ling Hu Patriarch certainly understood what Long Han meant. After laughing, he wanted to consolidate the relationship with the other party. However, before he finished speaking, he heard an extremely excited male voice resounding through Huangfeng Valley. Haha, so that's it. So that's it. The voice contained pure mana. In Huangfeng Valley, the only one who could do this, besides Ling Hu Patriarch, was Luo Hong. And Ling Hu Patriarch was sitting in front of him, and Long Han instantly showed a suspicious expression. Although he didn't know why junior brother Luo couldn't help himself, Ling Hu didn't have time to think about it. He immediately frowned and put on a look of great pain, saying, Master Long, listen, my junior brother is crazy now. Luo Hong knew nothing about what happened in the outside world. In fact, even if the devil came to him now, he would not come out of retreat. What he saw and heard after taking the Shiangxin fruit solved the problem that had been bothering him. After calming down a little, Luo Hong's mind moved, and a milky white jade pendant slowly floated out from his forehead and fell on his chest. Looking at the silver tadpole text on this half of the Jink Jade book, Luo Hong had an unprecedented enlightenment. Although the mystery of these silver tadpole texts was still not clear in his eyes at this moment, when he concentrated on comprehending one of them, he could vaguely see the silver runes that made it up. However, in order to completely analyze a silver rune, Luo Hong had to use the data recorded in the physical examination form to establish a structural model of the silver tadpole text. All of this is just a matter of time, and it won't take too long. The normal way to comprehend the silver tadpole text should be similar to the visualization method. When the cultivator uses his spiritual consciousness to contact the silver tadpole text for a long time and accidentally enters a mental state that matches it, he can leave the imprint of this silver tadpole text in the deep layer of his soul little by little. When the deep imprint is completed, the cultivator will have some kind of enlightenment. It is not until the cultivator digs it from the deep layer of the soul to the surface that he can comprehend a silver tadpole text. This method relies on perseverance for 30% and luck for 70%, and it is a typical case of those who are destined to get it. Although my method of analyzing the silver tadpole text is a little cumbersome in the early stage, it will become easier as time goes by, and it is more than 10 times better than this. Luo Hong's eyes lit up, and he said to himself excitedly. After this experience, he finally understood that in the great system of the heavenly Dao, the silver rune is the underlying code, and the silver tadpole text is a small program composed of code. And the golden tadpole text that he has not seen yet is probably the law composed of multiple programs. Luo Hong's harvest this time, let him master the method of analyzing silver tadpole text is obviously the biggest effect. At the same time, in the practice of one thought into the Daoju, it also has a huge role in promoting the condensation of the original soul talisman. Luo Hong originally looked profound and mysterious, but when he saw the structure of the silver tadpole text, he felt that it was as rough as a bunch of debris gathered together without any rules. Therefore, in order to condense the most perfect original soul talisman, Luo Hong decided to complete the analysis of several silver tadpole texts first, and then practice his first original soul talisman with the improved condensation method. Spring and autumn, time passed year after year. The demon soul that ravaged Cheyenne seemed to have left the territory of Cheyenne after suffering a loss from the demon suppression team, and never showed any trace again. However, none of the major sects and immortal cultivation families in Cheyenne dared to take it lightly, for fear that the demon soul was just hiding to heal, and after its injuries recovered, it would set off a new round of bloody storms. But half a year later, the Milan people came to the news that the demon was going deep into the grassland. It seems that this demon is going to cross the Cheyenneland grassland and go to the legendary Dajin. Only then did the various forces in Cheyenne completely settle down. As long as this demon does not harm Cheyenne, the leaders of the major forces will not bother to hunt down this demon. Therefore, not long after this news came out, the demon suppression team was declared disbanded. However, before 2 years of peace, the boundless sea adjacent to Cheyenne changed again. In the boundless sea, near the coast of Ziguo, a strange big whirlpool suddenly appeared on the sea surface of the boundless sea for some reason. And this whirlpool can spray a lot of spiritual energy and gradually purify the surrounding sea area. Not long after, 7 small islands emerged from the seabed around the whirlpool. Each island is full of spiritual energy and has a rare top-level spiritual vein. This attracted the greedy eyes of the major forces in Cheyenne. So around the ownership of these islands, the three major cultivators jointly held an island seizure conference. Through a series of battles, these 7 islands were assigned to 7 sects. There is no doubt that the sects where the 3 major cultivators are located each occupy an island. In addition, it is worth mentioning that, although Huangfeng Valley did not send any cultivators to participate in the island seizure conference, it also obtained the ownership of an island. After all, since 2 years ago, there have been surging spiritual tides in Wushan from time to time, and some cultivators even claimed that they heard terrifying demon roars. None of these signs indicate that the Supreme Rainbow Lord, who shook the sky in the south, has recovered from his injuries and started to tinker with his terrifying magical powers again. Therefore, all the major forces in the south of the sky did not disobey the decision of the 3 great cultivators. However, just when the sect that obtained the ownership of the island began to build on the island, Huangfeng Valley was just a lot of thunder and little rain, and only sent 2 giant unstage cultivators to garrison. This act of not taking it seriously immediately made all the forces confused, but no one dared to spy on the reason. The entire Cheyenne and cultivation world thought that this was a turn for the better after the chaos of the demon soul, and only a few people were almost worried about it. Among them was Wei Wuya, who was escaping to Huangfeng Valley at this moment. Chapter 528 Leisurely Luo Hong. Since Luo Hong settled in Huangfeng Valley, Wei Wuya has visited her several times over the years, but he was unable to see Luo Hong every time. It was always Elder Ling who received him. So when he saw Luo Hong coming from the horizon, he couldn't help but show a hint of surprise in his eyes. Alliance Master Wei has come from afar. I'm sorry for not welcoming you. Please come with me to the main hall, so that I can show my hospitality as a host. As they approached, Luo Hong greeted him with a smile on her face. Looking at the person in front of him, Wei Wuya suddenly felt a little strange. Although the other person's appearance was exactly the same as Luo Hong's, his aura was a little wrong. However, Wei Wuya didn't think much about it. After all, they hadn't seen each other for 10 years. It was not surprising that the other person had cultivated some magical secrets, which made his aura change drastically. I'm ashamed to come here this time, to trouble Daoist Luo again. As soon as the two sat down, Wei Wuya said with a worried look on his face before the Huangfeng Valley disciples who were serving on the side left. But there is a problem with the 7 islands in Z country. Luo Hong took a sip of tea and said calmly, Daoist Luo already knew? Did Brother Xiang or that old demon Hehuan tell you? Wei Wuya was obviously very surprised by Luo Hong's answer and asked after a flash of his eyes. Neither. I just heard that the 7 spiritual islands appeared not long after the demon soul escaped, so I roughly expected it. Luo Hong knew the cause and effect, but obviously couldn't tell the truth. In fact, these 7 islands overseas are part of the formation that the ancient cultivators used to seal the demonic energy left in Cheyenne when the ancient demon invaded. The complete demon sealing formation is huge, and there are multiple formation eyes on the Cheyenne continent. The Netherworld ghost house that Luo Hong once broke into is one of them. After the demon soul escaped from the falling demon valley, it was openly killing people and swallowing babies everywhere and secretly destroying the formation eyes located in various places in Cheyenne. Thanks to his operation, this ancient demon sealing formation has gradually begun to collapse. The spiritual energy spewed out by the vortex near the 7 islands is used to suppress the boundless demonic energy below the vortex. Once the loss of spiritual energy exceeds the limit, the demonic energy that has been suppressed since ancient times will gush out from the boundless seabed. By then, Cheyenne will no longer be suitable for righteous cultivation, and the demon cultivators who practice half-baked magic skills in Cheyenne will not be able to gain any benefits from it. It can be said that before leaving, the demon soul buried a time bomb in the Cheyenne cultivation world. If it is not handled carefully, the harm it causes will be much more serious than him devouring a dozen yuanying. Hey, Brother Luo is so young, but he can see things so clearly. No wonder he has achieved what he has today. Wei is not as good as him. Wei Wu'er thought that he had thought of this link at the beginning until the old demon Hehuan explored the situation below the vortex. He realized that something was wrong. Haha, Alliance Leader Wei, you are too kind. I'm just a bystander, and it doesn't matter. Now that Alliance Leader Wei has come to visit in person, I believe he has found a way to resolve this crisis. Although the Yellow Maple Valley is far inland, it is also a member of the Cheyenne Immortal Cultivation world. If there is anything I can help with, please let me know. Luo Hong curled his lips and said righteously, it is rare for Daoist Luo to be so righteous. To be honest, I came here because I wanted Daoist Luo to come out and repair the demon sealing array. Wei Wu'er didn't expect Luo Hong to be so straightforward. He had agreed before he even asked, and he couldn't help but feel good about Luo Hong. As he spoke, Wei Wu'er took out a jade slip that looked very old and several worn-out books, and told Luo Hong what he had investigated. After Luo Hong had read and heard it, he said generously, of course, I will not let Daoist Luo work in vain this time. If you have any needs, please feel free to tell me. Wei promises that, if it can be satisfied, I and the other 2 Daoists will definitely satisfy it. Luo Hong was waiting for this sentence. He has learned a lot of good things from analyzing the Silver Tadpole script over the years, but it takes a lot of resources to turn it into combat power. This time, repairing the demon sealing array, it is just right to plunder some from the entire Cheyenne. At that moment, Luo Hong was not polite. He patted the storage bag on his waist and handed over a jade slip. Wei Wu'er took the jade slip with a smile, but as soon as his spiritual sense was probed, his smile froze. After a long while, he came back to his senses and said with a wry smile, Brother Luo, this list is too long. Even if I dig out all the assets of Cheyenne, I'm afraid I can't get it all. Haha, Alliance Leader Wei misunderstood. How could I be so greedy? In this list, as long as Alliance Leader Wei can help me get 3 sets, it will be considered as a reward for my hard work. If there are any extras, Luo is willing to exchange them at the same price. Previously, Luo entered the Fallen Demon Valley and gained quite a lot. What I get out will definitely satisfy Alliance Leader Wei. As he said, Luo Hong took out a piece of top-level spiritual material that he had upgraded and a bottle of venom from the flying purple scorpion. Seeing the top-level spiritual material, Wei Wu'er's eyes flickered, but his face did not change. After all, he was the leader of an alliance, and his knowledge was far beyond that of ordinary people. But when he smelled a wisp of purple poison gas deliberately released by Luo Hong, he immediately showed a covetous look and even asked how many sets of resources on the list this thing was worth. Luo Hong smiled and quoted a low price. Wei Wu'er immediately understood and laughed as he took on the task of collecting the resources on the list, saying that he would not let Luo Hong down. After deciding the date to go to the 7 overseas islands, Wei Wu'er left the Yellow Maple Valley with the jade slip. At this time, Luo Hong did not immediately devote himself to cultivation or research after solving trivial matters as he did in the past. Instead, he drank the spiritual tea in the cup leisurely before getting up and escaping to his cave. As a result, just as he escaped to the sky above the gate of the mansion, he saw Fan Mengai sneaking out with a wine jar. Senior Sister Fan, is it not good for you to do this? Xiaoqia looked around, as if she was watching for her, and said timidly, what's the matter? Master originally promised to give me 2 jars after this batch of spiritual wine is brewed. After all, I have done a good job in taking care of it. Fan Mengai said that it didn't matter, but her guilty look still betrayed her true thoughts. That being said, I took it without asking. Xiaoqia was extremely regretful. If she had known that Fan Mengai had asked her to come here today for this matter, she would never have come, even if she was beaten to death. After all, this was stealing the spiritual wine of Uncle Luo, who was feared throughout the south. Oh, Master has already gone into seclusion. I don't think he will come out for another 10 to 20 years. He is a nobleman with many things to do, and forgot to tell me. I can't wait foolishly. If I delay my practice, Master will be heartbroken. I don't know if it was to save face in front of Xiaoqia, but Fan Mengai became more and more excited as he spoke, and even came up with some twisted logic. Chapter 529, Incarnation. I still don't think it's good. How about you drink it yourself, senior sister Fan? Zyokia was called here today because Fan Mengai said she had something good to share with her. Now it seems that this good thing must be the spiritual wine that the other party stole. You really don't want to drink it? Fan Mengai smiled cunningly and then pretended to be regretful and said, what a pity, this is the spiritual wine brewed by Master using the inner elixir of ancient beasts. Think of the cultivation of those ancient beasts for thousands of years in this wine jar. This one sip. At this point, Fan Mengai deliberately stopped and secretly glanced at Zyokia. She specifically called Zyokia here today, not for anything else, but because she felt guilty. Thinking that Zyokia and her master also have a good relationship, as long as she drags the other party into the water. Even if the master wants to punish her in the future, it should be much lighter. Otherwise, how could she share this precious spiritual wine that can improve cultivation? Hearing the origin of this spiritual wine, Zyokia was shocked and couldn't help but sigh at the generosity of Uncle Luo. Just as she was hesitating, a cough suddenly came from above her head. Fan Mengai's delicate body stiffened instantly, and she raised her head with difficulty, and Luo Hong's figure was reflected in her eyes. Master, you are not. Fan Mengai didn't understand why her master was outside the cave. She had clearly confirmed, before taking action, that all the restrictions in the cave were open, indicating that Luo Hong should still be in seclusion. Zyokia was complaining in her heart at this time. She was completely tricked by Fan Mengai today, but she was very likely to be punished together. It was really unfair to her. In the past few years, you have practiced hard, and you are not far from the bottleneck of the late stage of Jinden. After refining this jar of spiritual wine, I think you can break through after a year of seclusion. Not bad. After the escape light landed, Luo Hong walked in front of Fan Mengai, sensed the other party's breath, and said with a smile on his lips, it's all Master's good teaching. When Fan Mengai heard that Luo Hong didn't seem to have any intention of blaming her, she immediately flattered him with a smile. But, hearing these two words coming out of Luo Hong's mouth, Fan Mengai was immediately shocked and felt something was wrong. As Luo's only disciple, you are a little narrow-minded. Since junior sister Zyo is willing to share your hardships, how can you send her away with just a little spiritual wine? You can share the other jar of spiritual wine I promised you before with junior sister Zyo. After saying that, Luo Hong walked towards the cave without looking back. Fan Mengai's face immediately turned bitter, and she felt that she had suffered a great loss. Just when she thought that the matter was over, she heard Luo Hong's footsteps suddenly stop. In addition, no, Master Fan Mengai wailed in her heart. It is difficult to gain a foothold in the world of immortal cultivation with only cultivation. After you break through the late stage of Jinden, go to the periphery of Zuemo Valley with junior brother Zyo for some training. Zuemo Valley was originally a prison used by ancient cultivators to seal the ancient blood flame demon. Now the only prisoner has escaped, and the two key cells have been destroyed, causing serious damage to the original restrictions. If Zuemo Valley is compared to a superformation spanning thousands of miles, it is now that the two most critical formation points have been destroyed, and its power is naturally greatly reduced. Therefore, although the inner valley is still full of dangers, the restrictions in the outer valley are weakening year by year. After eliminating the influence of the restrictions, the power of heaven and earth has also closed up the spatial cracks in the outer valley. At this time, in addition to being careful of some areas and some powerful ancient beasts, the periphery of Zuemo Valley is no longer very dangerous. Jinden cultivators like Fan Mengai can also experience it. I think with the few treasures I have bestowed, the other party should be able to get a lot of benefits and experience without any danger. Yes, Master. Fan Mengai felt that her future was bleak, and she replied in a listless manner. Luo Hong didn't care whether she could understand his good intentions or not. After explaining it, he walked into the house, and then a flash of inspiration came to him, and he disappeared without a trace. Well, since Master has spoken, this jar of spiritual wine will be given to junior sister Zyo, and I will go and get another jar. Fan Mengai didn't dare to go against Luo Hong's will, and immediately stuffed the jar of wine in her arms into Zyokia's hands. Junior sister thanks senior sister here. Xiokia didn't expect things to develop like this. After a moment of stagnation, she thanked him. Fan Mengai waved his hand handsomely, embarrassed his aching heart, and then walked towards the house with a firm look. Humph. This time I will pick the best jar, and make up for the loss as much as possible. In the cave, Luo Hong's figure suddenly appeared in the quiet room protected by many restrictions. He walked to a corner of the quiet room with an expressionless face, and suddenly shot a beam of magic light at the ground. Suddenly, a white spiritual light suddenly lit up, and there was a hidden teleportation array here. Soon, the white spiritual light engulfed Luo Hong's figure. With a flash of light in front of his eyes, Luo Hong was teleported to the belly of a mountain. The concentration of spiritual energy here is far higher than that of the outside world, and even the so-called top spiritual veins cannot compare with it. The most shocking thing is that there is another Luo Hong sitting cross-legged in this secret room. Luo Hong, who had just been teleported, was not surprised at all. At this moment, he stood there quietly, waiting for the sitting Luo Hong to finish his practice. Not long after, Luo Hong, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes and said calmly, I didn't expect that the secret technique recorded in the Great Sun Blue Demon Art is so exquisite that even cultivators in the late nascent soul stage can't see your true face. The standing Luo Hong shook his head slightly and said calmly, the secret technique is secondary. The main thing is that this body is strong. Although I have practiced the Great Sun Blue Demon Art, I still can't drive it freely. It seems that I still have to borrow the Brahma Saint true film of Junior Brother Han to comprehend it. While speaking, this Luo Hong underwent amazing changes. Purple scales grew on his skin and a single horn protruded from his forehead. Except for the eyebrows and eyes that were 70% similar to Luo Hong, the rest was exactly the same as the demon body of that day. Obviously, the demon-like Luo Hong in front of him was the result of Luo Hong's more than 10 years of hard work. Although I have deduced this soul talisman to the level of a half-step Dao talisman, the progress of this growth has suddenly slowed down after your cultivation has reached the nascent soul stage. It is still too difficult for the soul of the early nascent soul stage to drive this demonic body. However, you only need to absorb the pure demonic energy that has been deposited at the bottom of the demon abyss for tens of thousands of years, and I think you can achieve the union of body and soul, and the damage to this demonic body can be restored. By then, even with the power of this demonic body itself, you can fight against the cultivators in the late nascent soul stage. Luo Hong looked at his external incarnation and nodded continuously. In just over 20 years, he was able to refine an external incarnation that could rival the cultivators in the late nascent soul stage. Luo Hong was really satisfied. Chapter 530, Retreat. After having a powerful incarnation, Luo Hong suddenly felt that he had a lot more time, and many tedious and repetitive tasks could be handed over to the incarnation. After all, everything he knew, the incarnation knew, and as long as Luo Hong had a thought, he could use the half of the Taoist talisman to refresh and reset the other party's emotional memory. This is much safer than Han Lao Mo's incarnation. That would backfire at any time. At this time, Luo Hong could directly sense the yuaning of the god of transformation and the half of the Taoist talisman floating in it. The talisman had uneven edges and corners, and was missing both the head and the tail, but it exuded the same spiritual light as a silver tadpole text, and was extremely mysterious. Although this talisman did not look good, it was actually condensed from all the surface silver runes on Luo Hong's yuanshan. In order to condense it, Luo Hong almost exhausted his spiritual consciousness. In other words, if it were not for the structure of the silver tadpole text, even Luo Hong's Qian Yuanshan could not bear such consumption. In other words, this should not be a method that a nascent soul cultivator can master. Under normal circumstances, only a cultivator in the middle or late stage of the spiritualization realm can condense such a half Taoist talisman. As for the incomplete part of this talisman, it is undoubtedly those deep silver runes. Only by condensing the perfect Binyu and Dao Fu can I create a second me at the level of heavenly Dao. Moreover, at that time, the spirit that carries the Binyu and Dao Fu will not need to seize another body. It only needs to absorb enough spiritual energy to condense my physical body again. The potential for this magical power to be tapped is still great. Counting them down, I have acquired 3 great magical powers since my breakthrough to the nascent soul stage. The myriad aspects divine eye that can drive the purple sky divine thunder is the best in attack, but it cannot be used easily. However, its flexible and changeable spiritual eye magical power is enough for me to deal with various situations, and it has great potential. Secondly, it is this physical body of mine that I obtained by practicing the great 5-element Tang Sheng Ju. Just relying on the magical powers of the 5-element Great Escape and the Red Han transformation, I can fight against cultivators in the late nascent soul stage without losing the upper hand. And now I have created another incarnation magical power with huge potential. Although it has only just begun to show its prowess, it can also rival the power of the late nascent soul stage. With the addition of the great treasures such as the Kyankan Pearl and the Heavenly Demon Flag, this trip to Dajin will not be too dangerous. However, the noise I made in the Black Domain before was too loud. If I reveal my whereabouts in Dajin, I'm afraid that I will attract the old monster in the God transformation stage. The Yuansha soul in Kunwu Mountain will be even more difficult to deal with. Therefore, to be on the safe side, I still have to wait until my cultivation reaches the late nascent soul stage before setting off. Let Han Lao Mo go first. After staring at the half-Taoist talisman for a moment, Luo Hong's thoughts suddenly diverged, and he thought of many things. When he realized that he was talking to his clone, Luo Hong couldn't help but smile, and then explained, "When you get to the bottom of the demon abyss, remember not to pick up all the demonic marrow. I'm you, so I naturally know the pros and cons of it, so don't worry." After that, Luo Hong's incarnation returned to human form, stepped on the teleportation array under his feet, and returned to the quiet room. Luo Hong's incarnation used the spiritual energy in the main spiritual chamber to cultivate to the nascent soul realm, just to control the body of the ancient demon. Soon he would have to use the demonic energy to fill his body, and it would be a waste to absorb and refine the spiritual energy. So at this time, he might as well do something else, such as cultivating the 2 kinds of spiritual insects in the stone chamber, and refining the spiritual materials needed to refine the Shenfeng Shadowless Sword. After the incarnation left, Luo Hong sat down with ease, and started to practice his own skills again. Although he had just broken through the middle stage of the nascent soul not long ago, he was confident that he could break through to the late stage of the nascent soul within 20 years. First, the abundant spiritual pressure in the main spiritual chamber increased his cultivation speed by more than 10 times. Second, his Yuanshan realm and physical realm have exceeded the level of the middle stage of the nascent soul by a lot. Third, his understanding of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is no less than that of the divine transformation cultivator. With these 3 factors, Luo Hong not only cultivated at an incredibly fast speed, but also almost never encountered bottlenecks. All he had to do was to meditate silently in the main spiritual chamber for 20 years. More than a month later, the incarnation Luo Hong set out from the Yellow Maple Valley and headed for the Z country adjacent to the Boundless Sea. Soon, he met up with Wei Wu'er and the other 2, and took on the task of repairing the Great Demon Sealing Array, by relying on his reputation as the #1 array mage in the southern part of the country. Then, he easily used his position to go down into the demon abyss, and absorbed and refined a wave of pure demonic energy. After actively receiving the demonic energy into his body, the incarnation Luo Hong's temperament gradually changed, but Luo Hong's original body, who was far away in the Yellow Maple Valley, noticed it with the help of half a Taoist talisman, and instantly refreshed his original temperament. In this way, the incarnation practiced at the bottom of the demon abyss for 3 years before finally coming up with a plan to repair the array. Since no one except the incarnation Luo Hong could go down to the bottom of the demon abyss, no one could expose his lie when he said he was just exploring the surface. In this way, the original timeline will not be destroyed. After all, the magic essence that Han Lao Mo obtained from the demon abyss is also an important part of his involvement in the birth of Kunwu Mountain. It is worth mentioning that he who and Lao Mo seemed to faintly sense the magic energy hidden by Luo Hong's incarnation, and there was something wrong with his eyes. However, after giving the repair plan, Luo Hong's incarnation went straight back to Huangfeng Valley, and became the housekeeper of the original body. Even if he had doubts, he could not hinder Luo Hong. In the following days, without Luo Hong and Han Lao stirring up trouble, the Cheyenne and Zeuxan world was much more peaceful. Peaceful times always pass quickly, and 25 years passed in a blink of an eye. On this day, outside the falling demon valley, Fan Mengai, Xiaoqia, and another giant and cultivator from Huangfeng Valley, the three of them were fighting a two-headed fierce ape together. Although this ancient beast has the cultivation of the seventh peak, comparable to the false infant cultivators of the human race, and its innate magical powers are extremely powerful, but from the scene, Fan Mengai alone can suppress it. Xiaoqia and the other two were just holding the fort, not using their full strength. As if she had already figured out the strength of the two-headed fierce ape, Fan Mengai's eyes suddenly became fierce. While driving the 12 Xianyang swords to entangle the two-headed fierce ape, she actually sacrificed 24 Xianyang swords at once. Suddenly, Fan Mengai's forehead was sweating as she was overwhelmed by the heavy burden. As she pointed her sword, the remaining mana in the golden elixir was reduced by nearly half. At that moment, the 24 Xianyang swords gathered in the middle and turned into a 10-foot-long giant sword. Cut! Fan Mengai shouted delicately, and the Xianyang giant sword emitting a red-gold spiritual light fell straight down towards the two-headed fierce ape. The two-headed fierce ape also knew that Fan Mengai's move was powerful and tried its best to hit its chest. The two ape heads opened their bloody mouths at the same time, spewing out thick fire pillars with blackened blood. As soon as they came out, the two fire pillars merged into one, adding 3 points to the power. Chapter 531. Outside the Demon Valley, the Xianyang giant sword slashed down, splitting the black blood and fire pillar in two, and slashed towards the demon body of the two-headed fierce ape with unstoppable force. With a shrill wail, the Xianyang giant sword actually split the 30-foot-tall demon ape into two pieces between its two heads. Such a heavy injury, even the ancient beast with strong vitality could not bear it, and the four eyes of the two-headed fierce ape immediately lost their luster. Its demon body also lost the protection of demon power, and under the power of the Xianyang giant sword, a blazing spiritual flame rose. Although the opponent was killed with one sword, Fan Mengai's heroic face still did not relax at all, and said in a hurry, "Junior sister Chen, hurry up." Reminded by this, Chenrong, who was originally distracted by Fan Mengai's sword, hurriedly sacrificed his own life magic weapon. A purple gold bottle emerged from his palm, flew to the top of Chenrong's head, and then a yellow spiritual wind blew out from the bottle mouth, sweeping straight towards the body of the two-headed fierce ape. At this moment, violent and chaotic demonic power fluctuations came from the body of the two-headed fierce ape. Fan Mengai thought it was not good, and she dodged to the side of Chenrong, staring at the place where the change came from. It was not the first time that Fan Mengai killed a high-level ancient beast outside the falling demon valley. Although she succeeded in killing the ancient beast several times before, the opponent exploded the demon pool in despair. Fan Mengai, who had never seen such a strong opponent, suffered a great loss. In desperation, Fan Mengai had to call Chenrong, a newly promoted giant and cultivator in the sect. Her life magic weapon had a good ability to confuse the soul. If she acted in time, she could control the ancient beast before its soul exploded the demon pill. However, Chenrong was too young after all, and his experience in fighting was seriously insufficient. He lost his mind at the critical moment, and missed the best opportunity. At that moment, even Fan Mengai did not dare to ensure that this matter would succeed. She could only protect the other party, so that she could save him, when things could not be done. After sensing the violent demonic energy, Chenrong was also very anxious. He gritted his teeth and desperately urged the magic weapon. However, when Huangfeng was still several feet away, the violent fluctuation of the demonic energy was about to reach its limit. Fan Mengai immediately saw that it was too late, stretched out his hand to grab Chenrong's shoulder, and was about to take her away and retreat violently. Alas, another in vain. Xiaoqia sighed, and also sacrificed the protective magic weapon, preparing to fly away from this place. As a result, the palpitations lingering in the hearts of the three women suddenly disappeared in the next moment. After a closer look, the extremely violent demonic energy calmed down in an instant, and became unusually docile. Such a strange phenomenon shocked the three women, and looked back at the same time. A man in a sky blue scholar's robe, whose appearance was unknown, was holding the demon pill of the two-headed fierce ape and looking at them with a smile. If he was not floating in the air, he would have been considered immortal by the immortal cultivators, based on his ordinary appearance. Uncle Luo. Xiaoqia was the first to reveal the identity of the person who came. Luo Hong nodded slightly in response. Master. That's great. Finally all my work was not in vain. Fan Mengai was also very happy to see Luo Hong, but her eyes were obviously more focused on the demon pill. What's good about it? Why don't you use the silver spirit pupil that your master taught you? When his eyes turned to Fan Mengai, Luo Hong's face suddenly sank, and he asked sternly, I haven't understood it yet, so I can't use it, even if I want to. Facing Luo Hong, Fan Mengai lost her heroic look just now and said aggrievedly, HMPH. Your master thinks you are not incomprehensible, but you are not putting in enough effort. It has taken you 10 years to learn a small magical power that uses spiritual consciousness. Luo Hong knew what Fan Mengai was thinking. She was obsessed with swordsmanship and had no interest in magical skills such as body and soul training. Although a sword can break all methods, a single method is a taboo for cultivators. If you ignore it on weekdays, you will pay the price of your life in the future. Fan Mengai also practiced the Great Evolution technique, so it is not difficult for her to learn the Silver Spirit Eye. If she had this magical power today, she would not need the help of others. With a flash of silver light in her eyes, the demon soul would be riddled with holes. Disciple knows I was wrong, and I will take it seriously in the future. Fan Mengai knew Luo Hong's temper very well. If she talked back at this time, she would be asking for trouble, so she quickly admitted her mistake. HMPH. Take it. After teaching her a lesson, Luo Hong did not hold on to it. She threw the demon pill in her hand to the other party and moved her eyes to the unfamiliar Chenrong. You are also a disciple of my Huangfeng Valley? Yes, I'm Chenrong, a disciple. Nice to meet Uncle Luo. Chenrong had only been in the Jiandan stage for 10 years, and this was the first time she had seen Luo Hong. Thinking of her reputation, she couldn't help but tremble with excitement. Surname Chen? Are you from the Chen family? Luo Hong took a closer look at her and found that she looked a bit like an old friend. Yes, I'm indeed a descendant of the Chen family. Chenrong responded immediately and couldn't help but think about the connection between his family and Uncle Luo. Just when Chenrong thought Luo Hong had something else to say to her, she just responded lightly and turned to look at the inner valley. After happily putting away the 7th level demon pill, Fan Mengai saw Luo Hong's attitude. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and she quickly flew forward and said, Master, are you going to enter the inner valley this time? Take your disciples with you. Sister Fan, the inner valley is not as weak as the outer valley. There are many dangers there. We should not take risks easily. Xiaoqia's face turned pale when she heard Fan Mengai's request, and she tried to dissuade her. I can share the worries of the master, so what's the fear of a little danger? Fan Mengai said with a commendable filial piety, but in fact, she knew very well that following Luo Hong into the valley was equivalent to an outing. Not only was there no danger, but treasures could be picked up at will. Well, the master just needs someone to help, so you can follow me. Fan Mengai and the other two followed into the valley. It was dispensable to Luo Hong, but since they met, they might as well take them with them. As for what benefits they could get, it all depended on their own opportunities. As soon as the voice fell, Luo Hong deliberately slowed down his speed and fled towards the inner valley. Fan Mengai was about to catch up, but was stopped by Xiaoqia with a frown on her face. Senior Sister Fan, forget about dragging me into the water. Junior Sister Chen's cultivation is still shallow. If something unexpected happens, Junior Sister Xiao, don't worry. Since Master dares to take you in, he is sure to keep you safe. At that time, you and Junior Sister Chen just need to keep your eyes open and don't miss the treasures and elixirs in the valley. Fan Mengai said confidently, as if they were not going to the first GD in Chai'an, but their own garden. Hey, Junior Sister Chen, you have to follow me closely later. Seeing that Fan Mengai didn't care about the dangers of the falling demon valley and followed without saying anything, Xiaoqia sighed and explained to Chenrong on the side. Today, the community organized nucleic acid testing, so it was late. I heard that there have been cases again recently. Brothers, please pay more attention. Chapter 532, Divine Sword. In the inner valley of the Falling Demon Valley, Shenrong, who was in the early stage of the Jianden stage, flew in the air with a dull look. This journey simply refreshed her understanding of the Falling Demon Valley. Whether it was the ancient restrictions or the space cracks, they were extremely dangerous things for her, a cultivator in the early stage of the Jianden stage. As long as she encountered them, her life would be in danger. But what did she see before? The most treacherous and dangerous invisible space crack among the space cracks was torn off by Uncle Luo and put into a small tripod. No matter how well those ancient restrictions that blocked the road were hidden, Uncle Luo would easily find them, and then after a small, dark blue gem was sacrificed, those ancient restrictions and the surrounding terrain would be destroyed. And what they had to do was to find those high-level items from the ruins that were not destroyed by Uncle Luo's divine power. After only walking more than 2,000 miles, Shenrong harvested a small brass bell. Ah, this ancient treasure is a soul-enchanting treasure. Junior sister Chen, this treasure is compatible with your skills, so I'll give it to you. Thinking of the scene where Fan Mengai stuffed an ancient treasure into his hand without explanation, Shenrong had a very strong sense of unreality. Ancestor, this is an ancient treasure, a treasure that only Yuanying cultivators can get their hands on. I'm just a small cultivator in the early stage of Jianden, how can I afford it? However, although he was extremely uneasy, Shenrong held the brass bell tightly, obviously cherishing it very much. Among the three women, the one who was most adapted to the sweeping treasure hunt was Luo Hong's only disciple Fan Mengai. After all, she was experienced and trusted Luo Hong's power extremely. In contrast, although Xiaoqia was also shocked beyond words, she was still able to keep her mind and still carried out this training journey in the inner valley with a sense of vigilance. After flying for nearly 1,000 miles, the four of them arrived above a strange forest. The vegetation here has become extremely aggressive due to the infection of the demonic energy. There are countless blood-sucking vine monsters and tree monsters. Fortunately, the grades of these monsters are not high, and they can't threaten Luo Hong and others flying in the air. But maybe Luo Hong made too much noise. Just after she used the Kyankan Pearl to smash an ancient restriction, she saw a giant beast attacking from a distance. Shenrong was floating in the sky hundreds of feet high. She couldn't see the true appearance of the beast through the dense treetops, but she saw that wherever it passed, no matter how thick the trees were, they were broken like bamboo sticks, and she knew that it must be extremely ferocious. The giant beast ran on the ground at a very fast speed. In a few breaths, it was close to the open space created by the Kyankan Pearl. Level 8 monster. It's a level 8 monster. Sensing the demonic energy that made her tremble, Shenrong couldn't help but shout in shock. Senior sister Fan, why don't you retreat quickly? Which is more important, treasure or life? Xiaoqia was almost pissed off by Fan Mengai. After she sensed the breath of the 8th level monster, she quickly flew away to avoid it. As a result, she flew dozens of feet away, but Fan Mengai still didn't catch up. When she turned around, she saw that the other party was still happily searching for treasures. She simply didn't know how to write the word death. As soon as Xiaoqia finished speaking, a fat giant lizard with a body length of 70 or 80 feet roared into the open space. This giant lizard was green all over, and its head and body were covered with rough scales like bark. The wood-scaled giant lizard was full of spiritual light, and it was obvious that it was unusually strong. After entering the open space, the wood-scaled giant lizard looked around and aimed directly at Fan Mengai on the ground. Without saying a word, it swung its limbs and ran towards her quickly. The tremor of the ground made Fan Mengai, who was concentrating on searching for treasures, frown, but she still didn't look at the enemy. Just when Xiaoqia was about to force her move and roll Fan Mengai to escape, her eyes suddenly widened, and an incredible scene appeared in front of her. The originally aggressive wood-scaled giant lizard turned into a pile of broken corpses without any signs. Its thick and solid wood scales seemed to be a joke, and it couldn't stop its own destruction at all. Just as Xiaoqia was stunned, a yellow wind swept past her, blew onto the pile of broken corpses, and then took out a green demon pill as big as a girl's fist. Haha, well done, junior sister Chen. Fan Mengai turned around and gave Chenrong a thumbs up, praising happily. Looking at the interaction between the two, Xiaoqia's cheeks suddenly puffed up. She flew to Fan Mengai and said angrily, "Did you know that Uncle Luo has this kind of invisible means to destroy the enemy, but deliberately didn't tell me, wanting to see me make a fool of myself? No, I don't know anything. Don't accuse me." Fan Mengai waved her hands repeatedly, saying that she didn't know. However, Xiaoqia didn't believe it and stepped forward to ask, "Why were you so calm just now? You weren't afraid of the 8th level monster?" Hearing this, Fan Mengai looked at Xiaoqia strangely and said as a matter of course, "Because master didn't say to run." Xiaoqia was stunned and speechless. Then her eyes wandered between the corpses in the distance and Luo Hong in the sky for a while, and she sighed dejectedly. "It turns out that I was the one who couldn't see through it. Senior sister Fan, you are right. As a giant and cultivator, it is stupid to speculate about yuanying cultivators." Upon hearing this, Fan Mengai's pair of watery eyes were filled with confusion. "Did I say such a thing?" Luo Hong didn't care about the little episode on the ground. He didn't mean to be mysterious just now. He just wanted to use this 8th level monster that came to his door to test the power of the Shenfeng Shadowless Sword. The result is obvious. A giant wood-scale giant lizard that is good at defense died without any resistance under the divine sword. Because it is made of invisible space cracks, the divine sword cannot be detected by the divine sense, and it is invisible and colorless, and can be said to come and go without a trace. Once this sword is out, ordinary immortal cultivators will probably not know how they died. Fellow Daoist Luo, it is rare for you to have such a wonderful idea. This fairy has seen many magic weapons that use the power of space, but you are the only one who can refine space cracks into flying swords. The brisk voice of the silver fairy sounded in Luo Hong's heart. Thank you for the guidance of the silver fairy, otherwise Luo would not be able to refine this sword, even if he exhausted all the invisible space cracks he collected. Luo Hong suddenly clenched his open right palm, put the 6 flying swords into his danshan, and replied politely. He had encountered some difficulties when refining the divine sword before, so that he failed to refine it frequently. Finally, it was Fairy Silver who took the initiative to instruct him, and used her magical powers to help Luo Hong, so that he could successfully refine 36 divine swords. Obviously, the number of flying swords was half less than what Luo Hong had planned, so he had to come to the Falling Demon Valley again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533, Great Jin Liao's How. In order to refine another 36 Shenfeng Shadowless swords, the invisible space cracks were not the most critical. After all, there was no shortage of such resources in the inner valley of the Fallen Demon Valley. What really troubled Luo Hong was that the Gangayan sand he had obtained before had been exhausted. Without the Stardust sand obtained after using this item to upgrade the spirit, it was impossible to condense the sword body, so Luo Hong had to try his luck in the Fallen Demon Valley again. Although he took Fan Mengai and the other two along the way, searching for treasures in the valley at a leisurely pace, he had already dispersed the 12 flying purple striped scorpions to search for traces of Gangayan sand everywhere. After being possessed by the extraterritorial demons, the fierceness of these flying purple striped scorpions was greatly reduced, but they were also much smarter and could execute more complex commands. In this way, Luo Hong led Fan Mengai and the other two to run rampant in the inner valley for more than a month. During this period, the 3 women made a lot of money. Everyone got 2 powerful ancient treasures, and there were a large number of spiritual materials and spiritual medicines. It can be said that the harvest of any one of them this time can make a yuanying cultivator jealous and want to kill people to seize the treasure. However, Luo Hong's side is not so smooth. In this month, he sent the purple striped scorpion to explore all the areas in the inner valley where the Gangayan sand may exist, but nothing was found. Although this was already expected by Luo Hong, he still felt a little annoyed after learning the result. Fellow Daoist Luo, don't worry. Anyway, you are planning to set off for Dajin in the near future. Are you still worried that you can't find enough Gangayan sand? Since the successful transaction with Luo Hong, the relationship between Fairy Yin and Luo Hong has eased a lot. Especially now that Luo Hong's cultivation has reached the late stage of Yuanying, he can advance to the stage of Shenhe with one more step. At that time, Fairy Yin can ascend to the spirit world with him, and her willingness to cooperate will naturally increase greatly. Although the Dajin Xiuxin world is vast and rich in resources, there are also many Xiuxin practitioners. It is not easy to obtain precious spiritual materials such as Gangayansha. Luo Hong shook his head somewhat displeased. He had several important things to do in Dajin this time, and the less extra trouble, the better. First of all, he had to find the entrance to Wentian Zenran's cave. Although he didn't know why Wentian Zenran didn't move the enlightenment tea tree before leaving the human world, since Luo Hong knew it, it was impossible for him to let this spiritual plant stay in the human world. Secondly, he wanted to join in the fun of Kunwu Mountain. After all, there were 3 Tangshan spiritual treasures there. Even a divine transformation cultivator would not let go of such treasures easily, let alone Luo Hong, a cultivator who had just broken through the late nascent soul stage. After pondering for a moment, Luo Hong put all the flying purple striped scorpions into the spiritual beast bag, and then announced the end of this trip. Without explaining why, he returned with the 3 women. Although Fan Mengai and the other 2 were still a little reluctant to leave, they did not dare to stay in the inner valley for a moment without Luo Hong's protection. They clearly understood that, although the ancient beasts that attacked them could not survive for more than a few breaths each time, and they seemed not to be very powerful, it was only because Luo Hong was too strong that people had the illusion. In fact, there were no ancient beasts in the inner valley that were weaker than level 8. If the 3 of them met any one of them, it would be impossible for them to escape without any damage. After coming out of the falling demon valley, Luo Hong summoned the magic dragon boat, and took Fan Mengai and the other 2 back to the Yellow Maple Valley without stopping. Not long after, a piece of news spread in the Xianan Xiuxin world. The Taishang Hangjin of the Yellow Maple Valley, who was famous in Xianan, began to practice in seclusion again, preparing to break through the bottleneck of the middle stage of the nascent soul. But only Linghu Patriarch and Yu Ruoxi knew that Luo Hong had already embarked on a journey to Dajin. Liao Zhao of Dajin was a large state in the 108 states of Dajin, and its area was enough to rank among the top 10. But unfortunately, most of the area borders the Xianlan grassland, where the spiritual energy is not strong and the resources for cultivating immortals are scarce. Therefore, although the area is vast, there is no decent force for cultivating immortals in the territory. In the Dajin dynasty, which is ruled by immortal cultivators, this also means that Liao Zhao will not be rich. On a flat official road, a caravan with dozens of carts is moving slowly, and there are more than 200 caravan stewards and guards accompanying it. Caravans of this size are extremely rare in the entire Liao Zhao, and only the 5 major families in Liao Zhao can organize them. Among the more than 200 people, most of them are guards of the caravan, all of whom are middle-aged men with lightning eyes and solid muscles. The things in their hands are also first-class goods, or if you look closely, there are many powerful crossbows that are only used by the official army in the future. It is precisely because of these elite guards that they can return to Liao Zhao from the Xianlan grassland all the way safely. Among a group of rough men's carriages, there is a luxurious carriage that is particularly conspicuous because it is surrounded by a group of young maids and heroic female guards. Many young men in the caravan will be attracted to it if they don't pay attention. It was not until the old man of the caravan slapped the back of his head or scolded him with a smile that he came back to his senses. Feng Xian is the leader of the female guards beside the fragrant carriage. Although she is a woman, she wears heavy armor and her skin is a sun-tanned wheat color. Even so, she still looks much prettier than the tender maid next to her. But if someone is so bold as to tease her, they have to be careful of the saber in her arms. She can become the leader of the guards of the Gong family, not just by her face. Even now that she is about to arrive in Xiangcheng, Feng Xian has not let down her guard, and her eyes are like eagles scanning the mountains on both sides of the official road. But just as she was on guard, a fragrant breeze suddenly blew across her nose, and then she heard a gentle female voice. "Sister Xian, please give this box of snacks to Mr. Luo." Feng Xian turned her head and saw her young lady lifting the curtain of the carriage, stretching out her frosty arm, and trying to hand her a delicate snack box. "Miss, you didn't even eat 2 pieces, how could you?" The voice of the little maid in the carriage came out with tears. "Xiaolan, if you are greedy, I will ask Aunt Wang to make more later." The young lady of the Gong family revealed the maid's little thoughts in one sentence, causing the other party to grumble in grievance. Frowning slightly, Feng Xian still took the snack box, and after instructing several female guards under her to be vigilant, she turned her horse's head and galloped to the end of the convoy. With a burst of rapid horse hoof sounds, Feng Xian came to a large cart at the end of the convoy. On this cart full of horse fodder, a plain-looking man in a scholar's robe was lying leisurely, his eyes looking straight at the sky, humming a tune that others could not understand. Feng Xian could not understand why her young lady was interested in such a strange man. Although she did not like those young men from noble families who coveted her young lady's beauty, if she compared the two, she would still prefer to give the box of snacks in her hand to the former. Chapter 534 Miss Gong. "Here, the young lady gave you this." With a hint of disgust, Feng Xian handed the snack box in her hand to the man. "Hey, please ask Miss Feng to thank Miss Gong on behalf of me." After the man said a polite word, he took the lacquer box, took out the exquisite snacks from it, and tasted them leisurely. Seeing the other party's unruly appearance, Feng Xian couldn't help shaking his head and drove his horse back to the young lady. "Haha, I didn't expect that the great Supreme Han Jun would also be despised by mortals." With a light laugh, the palm-sized figure of the silver fairy emerged, with a look of embarrassment on her face. "There is a huge difference between me and ordinary mortals, and it is natural that the other party cannot understand. Fairy, you know what? The snacks here in Dajin are very good. They only use low-level spiritual materials to make such a taste. It's not easy." Luo Hong threw a piece of snack into her mouth and nodded slightly, not angry at all, because of Feng Xian's rudeness. "Fellow Daoist Luo is really not picky. You are in this caravan, but you want to use the young lady of the Gong family to enter the world of immortal cultivation in Dajin?" After laughing, Fairy Yin immediately talked about business. She didn't believe that Luo Hong would have the leisure to play the game of immortals with a group of mortals. No matter how weak the Gong family is, it is still a big family in a state. With its power to cover up, Luo's origins will not be so sensitive. Luo Hong spent 2 years crossing the entire Xianlan grassland, naturally not to tease a few mortals. Liaozhou is located on the edge of Dajin, and there are no powerful immortal cultivation forces in the territory. It is just the right entry point for him to enter the world of immortal cultivation in Dajin. In the future, when he travels and acts in Dajin, he can avoid a lot of trouble as long as he claims to be from Liaozhou. It is not easy to investigate the good and evil forces that he offended. It is also interesting to think about it. Feng Xian, as the leader of the guards, didn't know that the young lady he was protecting was a cultivator in the key refining stage, and even the little maid next to her had a 3rd or 4th level of cultivation. Who is protecting who in this case? Luo Hong chuckled and shook his head. The most powerful person in the whole caravan was the young lady of the Gong family who was at the 8th level of key refining. The reason why the other party cared so much about him and sent snacks to please him was not because she was attracted by his unruly character, but because he showed off a little when he joined the caravan, beheading a wolf demon that was about to attack the caravan, and deliberately let the other party see it. At that time, he showed that his cultivation level was at the 10th level of key refining. It was just that I didn't expect that after he joined the caravan, this little girl was so patient. It had been half a month, and she still didn't invite him to meet. I don't know if she was self-reliant or was afraid, but Luo Hong was not in a hurry at all. The other party must have some hidden reasons for being sent by the family to do this hard job of running a business. With such a great master of the 10th level of key refining, this little girl couldn't have not made a move. Just when Luo Hong was enjoying his long-lost leisure time, Feng Xian had returned to the gorgeous carriage As soon as the sound of horse hooves stopped, Gong Zuhe, whose appearance was 3 times better than Feng Xian, anxiously lifted the curtain and asked expectantly, "Sister Feng, did young Master Luo ask you to bring any message?" Looking at her young lady's rosy face, Feng Xian secretly thought that she was in trouble. Could it be that this pearl of the Gong family was really being cheated away by a man of unknown origin? However, as a guard leader, Feng Xian knew that she had no right to speak on this matter, so she had to report it truthfully. "Except for me to thank the young lady, there is nothing else. Is that so? Please trouble Sister Feng." Gong Zuhua's face flashed with obvious disappointment, and she quietly lowered the curtain. "It's over. The head of the family will definitely be angry to death this time." Feng Xian suddenly felt that, after returning to Andu, the life of the Gong mansion would not be easy, and she couldn't help but think of taking a few days off. In the carriage, when Gong Zuhe lowered the curtain, a soundproof ban was activated, so no one heard what the little maid Zhu said at this time. "Miss, you have shown your goodwill, but that guy didn't respond. Does he not want to help at all?" "Humph, if this guy didn't want to help, he would have left long ago. Why would he stay in the caravan? His attitude is obviously that he is waiting for us to find him and get the best benefits." Gong Zuhe is only 20 years old, but she is also very thoughtful. She guessed that Luo Hong deliberately showed her intentions. "Miss, to be honest, I'm a little worried." Lu Zhu pursed her lips and said after a moment of hesitation, "Worried? Are you worried that he is of unknown origin or has ulterior motives?" Gong Zuhe raised her eyebrows and said with a slight smile, "Neither. I'm worried that the rabbit is you, miss." Lu Zhu shook her head and said with a worried look on her face, "Luo, you." Gong Zuhe didn't expect the maid to say that. Her pretty face suddenly turned red. She was about to laugh and scold, but suddenly sighed. "If that's the case, I'm afraid I have no choice but to obey." "Miss, you can't do that. Didn't you secretly get married to Mr. Song? If it doesn't work, let's go and ask Princess Luxiu." After Lusu was embarrassed for a moment, she suddenly thought of an idea. "No. If Luxiu is also involved, things may be more troublesome." However, as soon as Lusu had this idea, she was stopped by Gong Zuhe in a stern voice. "Forget it. After we settle down in Xiangcheng tonight, I will personally host a banquet and invite Mr. Luo to come over. Maybe the situation will not be as bad as we thought." "Well, that's the only way. I will arrange it immediately when we arrive in Xiangcheng." Lusu nodded dejectedly and said weakly. The two women thought that their conversation would not be known by outsiders because of the soundproofing ban on the carriage. However, they never expected that Luo Hong, who they thought was only at the 10th level of key refining, was actually a great cultivator in the late Yuanying stage. A mere soundproofing ban was simply useless. "Princess Luxiu? I didn't expect that this young lady of the Gong family was related to this woman. I remember that this Princess Luxiu was not a real royal family. Her title of princess was conferred by the Emperor of Dajin for the sake of her grandfather. And her grandfather was one of the 4 famous casual cultivators of Dajin, and seemed to be a cultivator in the middle stage of Yuanying. So it seems that the matter involving this young lady of the Gong family may be caused by a Yuanying cultivator behind the scenes." Luo Hong stuffed the last piece into her mouth and shook her head for her bad luck. Just trying to find a point of entry casually would also encounter the trouble of the Yuanying level. There was really no place to argue. Thinking of this, the caravan had arrived under a huge city. On the huge plaque hanging on the city gate, the words Xiangcheng were clearly written. The Gong family was a wealthy family in Liaozhou, so they didn't have to queue up like ordinary people and merchants to enter the city. After arranging some arrangements with the government troops guarding the city, the convoy was given priority to enter the city. As soon as the convoy arrived at the post station in the city, the little maid Lu Zhu walked towards Luo Hong. Chapter 535 Dinner. "After a long journey, my young lady wants to host a banquet tonight to entertain you. Please do me the honor." In front of outsiders, Lu Zhu looked well educated and polite. After a slight bow, she invited him. "It's been a tough journey, and I'm tired. If your young lady wants to invite me to the banquet, you have to prepare some good wine and food. Don't fool me with snacks." Luo Hong jumped off the cart, stretched her muscles, and leaned over to the little maid. "Humph. You greedy ghost. Those snacks are made of spiritual grains and spiritual fruits. My young lady usually doesn't want to eat them, and you are still not satisfied." Luo Zhu thought bitterly in her heart, but she still kept a smile on her face, and responded in a gentle voice, "Miss, you sincerely invite me. I will definitely not let Mr. Luo down. Well, then please tell Miss Gong that I will definitely attend the banquet on time tonight." After Luo Hong accepted the invitation, he walked out of the post station. It was his first time in Dajin, and he was ready to have a good look. After making a face at Luo Hong's back, Luo Zhu walked back with his short legs to report. After walking around the city for a while, Luo Hong found that the mortals in Dajin had a completely different attitude towards immortal cultivators. Luo Hong still remembered that when he was still in the key refining stage, he encountered a small village in Wushan, and the villagers there worshipped him as if he were an immortal. In this Xiangcheng, even if mortals saw low-level cultivators flying over the houses, they would at most look at them, and there was no special expression. Obviously, these mortals had long been accustomed to the existence of immortal cultivators. When passing by the government office, Luo Hong also sensed the auras of key refining cultivators, who were probably worshippers. However, it is worth mentioning that, although Luo Hong has sensed the auras of no less than 20 cultivators in the city, they are all key refining cultivators without exception, and not even a foundation establishment cultivator has been seen. This shows that in a resource-poor place like Liaozhou, the large number of cultivators is not a good thing. An hour later, as the sun set, Luo Hong turned and headed for a restaurant in the city that serves cultivators. As soon as he arrived at the door, Luo Hong noticed that two auras were locking onto him. After a brief investigation without making a sound, he found that the other party was key refining demon cultivators at the 8th or 9th level. At this time, there were only two cultivators in the restaurant, Gong Zuhur and her servant, so it was clear that these two key refining demon cultivators must be related to the troubles of the Gong family. It's interesting. The demonic path has always been a place that does not get up early without profit. The secrets hidden in this matter must be quite large. Thinking of this, Luo Hong pretended to be unaware and walked into the restaurant. He was taken upstairs by the waiter who greeted him. When Luo Hong disappeared, two shadows suddenly twisted in at a story building near the restaurant, and soon two figures appeared. This person should be the helper brought back by the target. The cultivation level of the 10th level of key refining is not easy to deal with. The speaker was a tall man with a fierce face. He held his hands in front of his chest and kept tapping his arm with his right index finger. However, his 10 fingers had been refined with the secret magic method, and they no longer had their normal shape. Instead, they turned into black claws like ghost hands. So every time he tapped, he would scrape off a piece of his flesh and blood, but he seemed to have no sense of pain, and didn't care at all. There was no blood flowing out of the wound on his arm. It's just one level of cultivation. The other party is just a barbarian from the grassland. How can he be a match for you and me? Moreover, for this assassination, the Guardian Lord also lent us a top-level magic weapon. Under the sneak attack, this person will definitely not have any resistance. A short and thin man in a black robe, whose face could not be seen, looked in the direction of the restaurant, sneered and said disdainfully, "Humph. Since you are so sure, why don't you make the first move later?" The tall man snorted coldly and said somewhat dissatisfiedly, "No problem. Since senior brother is willing to give in, junior brother will naturally share the worries for senior brother." The short and thin man heard this. Not only did he not get angry, but he happily agreed. This made the tall man frown. You know, although the other party's cultivation is one level lower than his relationship in the sect is much more solid than his. And now this guy is so concerned about this task, he must have heard some rumors. Maybe I should be more active and not let the credit go to the other party. As their minds wandered, the two of them discussed a sneak attack plan, ready to launch an assassination the moment Gong Zuhur and her friends stepped out of the restaurant door after having a full meal. So, the two of them turned into shadows again, swam out from the second floor building, and ambushed on both sides of the restaurant door. At this time, in the private room on the third floor of the restaurant, Gong Zuhua was politely inviting Luo Hong to take a seat. Glancing at the delicacies on the table, Luo Hong chuckled, raised his glass and said, "Thank you for Miss Gong's hospitality today. If you have any difficulties, please tell me directly. Why does Mr. Luo pretend to be ignorant? The affairs of our 5 major families in Liaozhou have spread to several nearby states over the years. Didn't Mr. Luo come here specifically for this?" Gong Zuhua didn't expect Luo Hong to say something that surprised her right away, and she was immediately confused. "I think Miss Gong has misunderstood. Luo has no special background. He is just a casual cultivator in the mountains. He was lucky enough to get some opportunities, so he could have the cultivation level he has today. He just wants to build a foundation, so he must have the help of the foundation building pill. He happened to meet Miss Gong, who seemed to be in trouble, so he shamelessly came to him and wanted to cling to the thigh of the Gong family." Luo Hong said while eating, as if he had never seen the world of immortal cultivation. "I see. I thought Mr. Luo was sent by the other 2 families. In that case, Mr. Luo wants to get the foundation building pill from the Gong family." Gong Zuhua was relieved immediately, but she did not completely let down her guard. The foundation building pill is only one of them. Luo also hopes to join the Gong family and learn your family's secrets. After all, as a casual cultivator, what Luo has learned and known in the past is too one-sided, and he urgently needs to understand the world of immortal cultivation in all aspects. Therefore, it would be best if Luo could browse the family books of the Gong family. The last condition seemed to be casually proposed by Luo Hong, but it was actually what he really wanted. Through the family books of the Gong family, he can quickly understand the general situation of the Great Jin cultivation world, which will facilitate his future actions. As long as Mr. Luo can help my Gong family overcome difficulties, a foundation building pill is not a problem. However, as for the family secret method, I can only teach you one. As for the others, Mr. Luo still needs to discuss with my father, and I can't guarantee anything now." Hearing that the other party's request did not involve himself, Gong Zuhua couldn't help but smile even more. Chapter 536, The Dilemma of the Gong Family. Before discussing the bargaining chips, Miss Gong, please explain the troubles that your Gong family has encountered. If it is too dangerous, even if you agree to all my conditions, Luo will not get involved. And if Luo finds out during the cooperation that you have any concealment or untruths, Luo will withdraw immediately or even join your hostile forces. So, Miss Gong, please think it over before you speak." Luo Hong said without disguising. Mr. Luo is really bold and cautious. He took the initiative to contact me regardless of the risks, but now he has many concerns. Gong Zuhua found that she could not understand the casual cultivator in front of her more and more. The other party's way of doing things was completely different from the familiar way of planning before acting. This person dared to rush into the unknown fog and could stop at the key fork in the road without losing caution. It was really wild. There is no way. If casual cultivators like us want to stand out, we have to survive from death. Luo Hong grinned at Gong Zuhua with a fierce look in his eyes. Mr. Luo's achievement today shows that this method is indeed desirable. Let's get back to the point. In fact, this crisis is not unique to our Gong family. The Song family, Bei family and Pei family, which are also among the 5 major families, are also in the situation. Gong Zuhua used her soft voice to tell Luo Hong about the cause of the crisis and the difficulties she faced. During this period, Luo Hong did not say a word and silently acted as a listener. When Gong Zuhua stopped, he couldn't help but sigh. There is really no new power struggle. Although the 5 major families such as the Gong family occupied Liaozhou, due to the prevalence of the cultivation of immortals in the Great Jin dynasty, the 5 major families did not actually occupy the vast majority of the cultivation resources in Liaozhou. A large part of them were divided by those small sects with only 1 or 2, or even no foundation building cultivators. As a result, the 5 major families were only famous, but in fact they did not even have a giant and cultivator. They were famous in Liaozhou because of their ancestors' influence, and their opponents were even more unbearable. This situation lasted for thousands of years. Although there were constant conflicts in the Liaozhou cultivation world, none of them rose to the level of the 5 major families. They were just small fights between small sects. But just 5 years ago, the situation in Liaozhou was completely broken by the current patriarch of the Fang family. This Fang patriarch went far away and joined the Blood Cry sect, which was thousands of miles away from Liaozhou, and broke through to the early stage of Jinden. With his brazen return, the situation in Liaozhou was like a bucket of water poured into hot oil, and it instantly churned up. Under normal circumstances, Jinden cultivators can easily kill Foundation cultivators, so the strength of the Fang family immediately overwhelmed the other 4 families, and began to erode the other 4 families. At first, the Gong family and the other 4 families did not stand up to the Fang family. They all adopted a strategy of shrinking and concessions, and took the initiative to give up some of their own resources to the Fang family. It can be said that the 4 families gave enough face to the newly promoted Fang family patriarch. But unfortunately, the other party did not appreciate it, and even put on a posture of completely annexing the 4 families and monopolizing Liaozhou. This is not just a matter of losing some immortal cultivation resources, but it is related to the survival of the 4 families. Therefore, the 4 families immediately united to fight against the Fang family. In order to check and balance the Jinden clan leader of the Fang family, the 4 families began to seek help from other states with whom they were on good terms. It is not the Fang family's original idea to let their family members worship in the immortal cultivation sect. In fact, the 5 major families have clansmen who practice in large sects, but only the head of the Fang family has become a Jinden cultivator. Although the efforts of the 4 families have achieved some results, they cannot completely curb the ambitions of the Fang family. After all, a group of low-level cultivators cannot contact the supreme elders of their respective sects, but the clan leader of the Fang family has the opportunity. Fortunately, the Fang family did not dare to completely ignore the large sects behind the 4 families, so they did not take direct offensive means, but instead used more insidious methods. The specific method is related to the remaining shadow of the ancestors of the 5 families mentioned above. It seems that the ancestors of the 5 families have foreseen the weakening of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and they have prepared for a rainy day, and sealed a mountain range with spiritual veins with formations to protect the spiritual energy in it. Obviously, this is similar to the Blood Forbidden Land, but there is a big gap in scale and spiritual energy concentration. In this mountain range, shared by the 5 families, it is completely a dream to collect spiritual medicines that are more than 1,000 years old. Spiritual medicines that are 200 or 300 years old are considered rare in it. Correspondingly, the number and quality of the monsters remaining in this mountain range are far less than those in the Blood Forbidden Land, and entering it to collect medicines is not a dangerous job. Originally, when the strength of the 5 families was similar, the herb collecting action once every 3 years was very peaceful, and there was no competition at all. Because all the spiritual medicines collected must be handed over in the end, and the 5 families will discuss and distribute them. But the last time the Fang family blatantly broke this customary rule and sent out clansmen to kill the other 4 families, not only causing a large number of casualties, but also robbing almost all the spiritual medicines. Obviously, in Liaozhou, where the resources for cultivating immortals are barren, the 4 families cannot afford to lose such a precious land. So, they can only choose to fight. However, although only cultivators in the key refining stage can enter the mountain range due to the formation, the Fang family came prepared, and specially cultivated a group of key refining cultivators who are good at fighting. In addition, the elite key refining members of the 4 families suffered heavy losses last time, so even though it was 4 against 1, the situation was still not optimistic. Therefore, the 4 families jointly put pressure on the Fang family, so that when the mountain range is opened next time, each member of the 5 families can bring a helper with a cultivation level not exceeding the key refining stage to enter together. Haha, this is a good idea to close the gap. I wonder who proposed it? Luo Hong chuckled and asked casually. It was proposed by the head of the Song family. But I heard that the head of the Song family also thought of this idea after being reminded by young master Song Junlin. Lu Zhu suddenly interrupted and seemed to be proud of it. Looking at Gongzu's slightly flushed face, Luo Hong immediately guessed the reason. then this young master song is really outstanding. Luo Hong admired on the surface, but secretly his eyes flickered, and he was suspicious. After all, although this idea can effectively bridge the gap between the 4 families and the Fang family, it also allows outsiders to enter the forbidden area of the 5 families. The risk here is not small. If he is right, this should be the other party's real purpose. In this way, the composition of the Song family is questionable. Of course, no matter what conspiracy there is, as long as he, a full of things to do anying late stage cultivator, is there, it will be meaningless. In fact, if the hidden things can arouse his interest, even the Yuanying cultivator behind it will be in trouble. Chapter 537 Strength? That's right. Otherwise, Miss wouldn't have. Hearing Luo Hong praising Song Junlin, Lu Zhu couldn't help but raise her chin slightly and said very proudly, Lu Zhu. Gong Zuhua's delicate shout interrupted the little maid's embarrassing words, and then she straightened her posture and said to Luo Hong with a solemn face, Mr. Luo, this is the situation. I wonder if you are willing to go to the Wuan Mountains with me? Luo Hong did not agree immediately. He only saw him ponder for a moment and then said, well, in this case, Miss Gong went to Xianlan grassland with the caravan this time to seek help. I wonder what the reason is that made you return empty-handed? In addition, although Liaozhao is bitterly cold, there is still no shortage of immortal cultivators in the key refining stage. Your Gong family also has clansmen who are practicing outside to become apprentices. Why bother to go far away and spend more than a year to make a round trip? Hearing Luo Hong's 2 questions, Gong Zuhua's pretty face darkened, and she immediately squeezed out a bitter smile, and then explained softly, our Gong family has always had business dealings with the 2 Wu tribe on the Xianlan grassland. Although the exchanges are not frequent, the relationship is harmonious. As long as we pay some price, it is definitely not difficult to ask for help. But when we arrived at the grassland, we found out that the 2 Wu tribe had moved away several years ago, which made our trip in vain. Luo Hong nodded slightly while listening. The 2 Wu people now occupy the entire Xianlan grassland, and the tribes within have been in a state of frequent transfer. It is not surprising that Gong Zuhua had such an experience. In addition, the other party did not inform the Gong family of such a major event as the relocation of the tribe. Obviously, the relationship between the 2 parties is not as close as Gong Zuhua said, and the reason why she ended up with this job is probably because of her low status in the family. As for why we have to go far away instead of near, it's because most of the sects in Liaozhao's immortal cultivation world are waiting and watching, or even waiting for our 4 families in the Fang family to suffer losses, so that they can reap the benefits. In this way, they will naturally not allow their disciples to participate in the disputes between our 5 families. Moreover, due to the restrictions of the formation, only key refining cultivators under the age of 30 can enter the Wuan Mountains. There are very few members of the Gong family who meet this condition and have sufficient combat power. According to the rules, our 5 families can each send 10 people to enter the Wuan Mountains to practice and collect herbs. This time, because we can bring in 1 foreign aid, each family's team has swelled to 20 people. Even if our Gong family calls back all the members of the family who are cultivating outside and meet the conditions, we can't get that many people together. Therefore, I have to find a way to find help like several other brothers and sisters of the same clan. After saying that, Gong Zuhua looked at Luo Hong expectantly, waiting for his response. Although the other party's cultivation level is not her ideal key refining level 11 or 12, but the 10th level can barely be used. After all, she doesn't want to be in the limelight in this dispute, she just wants to save her life. The tragic scene when the Wuan mountain range was opened last time scared her a lot. I was wondering why Miss Gong was so sure that Luo Hong was a person with ulterior motives. It turns out that things are so coincidental. Okay. Luo Hong will accept your invitation and go to the Wuan mountain range with you. Gong Zuhua's eyes lit up, and she was about to say thank you, but when she heard Luo Hong say the word but, her heart couldn't help but lift again. In addition to the conditions just now, Luo wants the Gong family to announce that Luo is a member of your Gong family who has been stranded outside, and after this crisis is over, Luo will enjoy the treatment of the core members of the Gong family. You are taking advantage of the fire. My young lady is not qualified to enjoy the treatment of the core members of the Gong family. Why do you, an outsider, make such an excessive request? Lu Zhu was furious like a cat whose tail was stepped on. She put her hands on her hips and said angrily, now our Gong family is in need of people, so the first condition of Mr. Luo is not difficult, but the specific treatment is linked to strength. Gong Zuhua did not stop Lu Zhu from showing off her female power this time, and tried her best to control her emotions and declined. This is easy to say, you come with Luo. Luo Hong drank the wine in the glass in one gulp, and then without waiting for the two women to respond, she pushed the door and walked downstairs. Miss, what is he doing? Lu Zhu said a little guilty. She was afraid that she would scare away the young lady's life-saving straw. Let's go, let's follow them. Gong Zuhua bit her lip and stood up to rush out. After a while, Luo Hong walked to the door of the restaurant slowly, then chuckled and stepped over the threshold. Before the foot touched the ground, a short and thin figure suddenly jumped out from the shadow on Luo Hong's left hand, holding a dark and dull dagger, and slashed towards Luo Hong's throat. If an ordinary key refining cultivator was attacked like this, 10 lives would not be enough to die. But Luo Hong had already seen through their existence. At this moment, he forcibly stopped the Shen Feng Wuang sword in his dantian from flying out to destroy the enemy. He pretended to pinch out a spell with one hand, and a layer of blue light water curtain covered it. The dark dagger chiseled on the water curtain, but it only caused a layer of ripples, and was bounced back. When the short and thin figure flew backwards, he showed a shocked face, as if it was terrible that Luo Hong blocked his attack. The two women who followed closely behind were stunned when they saw this thrilling scene, and forgot to help for a moment. After the short and thin figure failed to hit, a tall man jumped out from the shadow on the other side. He stretched out a pair of sharp claws and attacked Luo Hong like a tiger pouncing on its food. In a flash, Luo Hong flicked his finger, and a green shadow shot out, breaking through the tall man's protective spirit shield and sinking into his heart. Then, the remaining force penetrated his body and knocked the tall man back, falling to the ground, and his life or death was unknown. In just a breath, Luo Hong repelled the two sneak attackers, and one of them seemed to be dead. Such a powerful force immediately made the short and thin man who had just stabilized his body let out a terrified cry. Then he wanted to escape without thinking. Want to run? Luo Hong snorted coldly, and the spells on his hands changed. Suddenly, the water curtain around him turned into a long snake, catching up with the short and thin man from behind, and entangled him tightly. At this moment, the tall man who should have died suddenly turned over and jumped up, waving his hand, and hitting a black ghost claw, directly digging Luo Hong's back. Mr. Luo, be careful. Gong Zuhua exclaimed, thinking that Luo Hong would be seriously injured without the protective spell. You started to walk the corpse path in the key refining stage. You are decisive enough. Along with Luo Hong's calm voice, an ice crystal flying sword whistled out, splitting the ghost claw with great force, and whoosh nailed it on the forehead of the tall man. In less than a breath of time, it was frozen into a block of ice. Chapter 538 The Blood-Robed Old Man. This flying ice crystal sword was a gadget Luo Hong made while studying the ice on the Huashan Peak. Although its spiritual energy fluctuations were only at the level of top-level magic tools, due to its special material, the power of freezing was very strong. Even low-level magic tools would be damaged by the extreme cold. Of course, even ordinary Yuanying cultivators could not see this. With a casual move, the ice crystal sword shot back and hung in front of Luo Hong's chest, pointing directly at the entangled short and thin man. As the ice crystal sword was pulled out, many cracks suddenly appeared in the ice that sealed the tall man. With a few crisp crackling sounds, the blue and transparent ice in the tall man's body shattered to the ground. Now he was a corpse king, and he couldn't die anymore. Miss Gong, come and take a look. Do you recognize this guy? Hearing Luo Hong calling her, Gong Zuhua blinked her eyes and took a stiff step. Ah, here they come. Lazu followed her young lady out of the restaurant. After finally moving her eyes away from the broken ice, she couldn't help but shudder. Haha, young Master Luo shouldn't be a grudge-bearing person. He must be. These two demon cultivators have been lying in ambush here since we entered the restaurant. Miss Gong, Do you know their origins? Luo Hong stretched out her hand and pulled the short and thin man 10 feet away closer. I haven't seen him before. He shouldn't be from the Fang family. Gong Zuhe frowned and identified him for a moment, then shook her head. Oh, he doesn't seem to want to confess, so let's kill him. As soon as the voice fell, Luo Hong urged the water snake to strangle him fiercely. Wow. The short and thin man suddenly heard a crackling sound of dislocated bones in his body, and he screamed in pain, and hurriedly said, "Ask what you want to know. Who sent you? Why did you want to assassinate us?" Gong Zuhe was afraid that Luo Hong would kill the short and thin man if he was unhappy, so she asked immediately, "I'm an inner disciple of the Blood Cry sect, and my uncle is a guardian of the sect. If you want to kill me, then kill me." Halfway through his words, a small fireball appeared in the eyes of the short and thin man. He only had time to scream before he turned into ashes. HMPH, you are not answering the question. What use is there for you? Luo Hong said coldly, then stretched out his hand to take the dagger, took a casual look at it, and put it into the storage bag. This Mr. Luo, shouldn't we interrogate this guy? Gong Zuhe was frightened by Luo Hong's murderous style and asked in a weak voice. Although she had participated in the trials and duels arranged by the family, she had never really killed anyone, let alone destroyed the body and soul of a person as cleanly as Luo Hong did. Didn't he say that he was a disciple of the Blood Cry sect? Obviously, the relationship between the Fang family and the Blood Cry sect is closer than you thought before. Luo Hong estimates that when the 5-element mountain ranges opened, the 4 families will face the elite disciples of the Blood Cry sect. Searching the storage bags of the two, Luo Hong laughed. How could it be? Since the Fang clan leader has returned to Liaozhou, he has already left the Blood Cry sect. How can he still get so much support from the Blood Cry sect? Gong Zuhe couldn't believe it for a moment, but had to admit that this was the fact. Don't be afraid, young lady. With Master Luo here, I believe you can get through this difficult time. Master Luo, you can't bear to see my young lady get hurt, right? Although Lu Zhu was young, her reaction was much faster than Gong Zuhe's. She knew that the most important thing at this time was to hold Luo Hong's thigh tightly. After calming down, Gong Zuhe looked at Luo Hong with a serious look and said, "Mr. Luo, although I dare not agree to your conditions, I will definitely try my best to fight for you in the family. Please help me, Mr. Luo." Well, just say that. It's getting late. You should go back and rest early. Set off early tomorrow and try to reach Xinan as soon as possible. After saying that, Luo Hong was about to walk towards her residence. "Ah, Mr. Luo, don't you live with the young lady?" Lu Zhu said in surprise. "Lu Zhu, what are you talking about?" Gong Zuhe's face flushed, and she pinched Lu Zhu's face in shame and anger. "But, what if there are assassins?" Lu Zhu hesitated and said worriedly. "Haha, don't worry about that. Luo has his own way of investigating. But if Miss Gong doesn't trust me, Luo is not unwilling to sacrifice." Luo Hong looked at Gong Zuhe. Although she was beautiful, she was obviously not as good as Yuan Yao and the others, so he was just joking at the moment. "Mr. Luo, don't be embarrassed. I believe I have the ability to save my life." Gong Zuhe slapped the jade pendant on her waist in dissatisfaction, and a layer of spiritual shield immediately protected her. "That's good. Goodbye." As soon as the voice fell, Luo Hong turned around and left, and soon arrived at his residence. After setting up the ban in the room, Luo Hong released the short and thin man's soul that he had secretly collected. A ball of green light floated in the air, and the panicked voice of the short and thin man came from it. "Don't kill my soul. If you ask again, I will answer you. I will." No need. It's more convenient for me to come and see it myself." Luo Hong sneered and performed the soul-searching technique without hesitation. Suddenly, amid the short and thin man's shrill screams, everything he knew was turned out by Luo Hong. Luo Hong did not expect a key refining disciple to know the plot of the great elder of the blood crying sect. He just wanted to understand the power and means of the blood crying sect. Unexpectedly, Luo Hong actually got some clues in his memory and remembered a few suspicious faces. Just when Luo Hong killed the two short and thin men, in the Fang family mansion thousands of miles away, an evil old man in a blood-colored robe was wantonly taking essence from a female foundation building cultivator. Below him, the head of the Fang family and another giant and cultivator bowed their heads and stood respectfully by the side. It was unknown what evil magic the old man in the blood-colored robe had used. Although the 7 orifices of the female cultivator who was being raped continued to emit blood-colored spots, which gathered into several blood-colored streamers and flew into the old man's mouth, her face was actually full of enjoyment, and she did not realize that her essence and blood were being seriously lost. Suddenly, two crisp clicks came from the body of the giant and elder of the Blood Cry sect, which immediately attracted the attention of the old man in the blood-colored robe. As if his interest was disturbed, the old man in the blood-colored robe sucked out all the remaining essence and blood in the female cultivator's body. Then, he threw the mummy in his arms and asked in a displeased voice, "What's going on? What went wrong?" Upon hearing this, the fat-headed and big-eared giant and elder broke out in a cold sweat on his forehead. He reached into his arms and wiped out 2 broken soul tablets. Chapter 539, Suspicion of Spiritual Veins. It was a chess piece placed by Xiangcheng. I remember there was a Gong family caravan heading to the grassland. The other party was able to wipe out the experts sent by me, so I guess they got some powerful reinforcement. The fat demon cultivator glanced at the shattered soul tablet and responded by searching his memory. HMPH. If it weren't for the large number of our sect's foundation building monks who would have attracted the attention of those old guys, how could I allow these little guys in the key refining period to act so presumptuously? The blood-crying ancestor's face was covered with frost. After angrily scolding, he turned his gaze to the head of the Fang family and said in a deep voice, "Have you done what I asked you to do before? If I'm disturbed by those little guys at the critical moment and cannot do my best, you and your Fang family will be turned into nutrients for the blood pool. Please rest assured, ancestor, the blood-burning pill has been refined and distributed, and the seal of the blood-crying boy has been applied. With the secret assistance of the Song family, it will be easy to wipe out the herbal medicine disciples of the other 3 families." The head of the Fang family did not dare to be negligent and responded quickly with a salute respectfully. "Well, very good. When I successfully break through the late nascent soul stage, you will all have the opportunity to enter the blood pool for cultivation. Don't let me down." Hearing that the plan was going well, the blood-crying ancestor couldn't help but reveal a sinister smile, and the dark green ghost fire burning in his eyes suddenly became stronger. "Thank you, ancestor." When the 2 giant and cultivators heard that they had the hope of entering the blood pool for cultivation, they immediately looked happy, as if they could make great progress in their cultivation, as long as they had this opportunity. More than a month later, a luxurious carriage, escorted by a team of female riders, arrived at the Wall of Xinan, a large city in the heart of Liaozhou. Compared with ordinary mortal cities, Xinan was built around a mountain hundreds of feet high, spanning 1,000 miles in radius, with a population of 1 million. The Xiangan Peak in the city is the family residence of the Gong family, one of the 5 major families in Liaozhou, and is also one of the top spiritual places in Liaozhou. Feng Xian rode his horse to the guards and showed Gong Zuhua's family token. The other party immediately shouted in fear. Soon, the huge gate on the side, which was only for the children of the Gong family to enter and exit, opened with the help of the mechanism. Then, under the envious eyes of the mortals, Gong Zuhua's carriage drove into Xinan City and headed straight for the Xiangan Peak in the center. Haha, the status of the Gong family in Xinan is really like that of a local emperor. Luo has seen it. In the carriage, Luo Hong and Gong Zuhua sat opposite each other, watching everything happening outside leisurely. A few days after leaving Xiangcheng, Gong Zuhua met the Gong family members who came to pick her up and handed the caravan over to them, so they were able to arrive in Xinan so quickly. Originally, according to Luo Hong's idea, they could fly all the way here, but Gong Zuhua was afraid of being assassinated again. Flying with a flying device consumes a lot of mana. Once they were intercepted, their lives would be in danger, so Luo Hong could only accompany them in the carriage for more than a month. During this time, Gong Zuhua was not idle. She asked Luo Hong many questions in a roundabout way, trying to further explore Luo Hong's background. Luo Hong's knowledge of Dajin was extremely limited. The sects he knew were only a few of the 10 major sects of the righteous and evil sects. In order not to reveal his true colors, he talked to Gong Zuhe about cultivation. With Luo Hong's late nascent soul cultivation, the cultivation of the key refining realm was no secret to him. After a few pointers, Gong Zuhe benefited a lot and then became addicted to cultivation. This allowed Luo Hong to have a quiet journey. Hearing Luo Hong sigh, Gong Zuhe gradually stopped practicing, opened his eyes and said, "There are many nascent soul cultivators in the royal family of Dajin. Young Master Luo, you can't say this to others." Haha, Luo has learned a lot. Miss Gong has been practicing for more than 10 days. I wonder if you have gained anything? Luo Hong knew how powerful the royal family of Dajin was. Except for the lack of a spirit transforming cultivator, its strength was almost the same as that of top sects such as Tai sect and Cheyenne Mo sect. Thanks to Mr. Luo's guidance, Zuhe's cultivation has improved significantly. When I go back and ask my father for a pill, I should be able to break through the 9th level of key refining. Gong Zuhe's tone was full of excitement. For a cultivator, nothing is more exciting than the improvement of cultivation. As soon as the voice fell, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly came from Gong Zuhe's side, and then Luo Zhu said happily, "Miss, I have broken through the 4th level of key refining." "Really? Quickly calm your mind and consolidate your cultivation." Gong Zuhe saw that Luo Zhu was eager to show off immediately after the breakthrough, and said angrily. More than an hour later, Luo Hong and others came to the foot of Shiangan Peak without any obstruction. With his own token, Gong Zuhe opened the illusion restriction at the foot of the mountain and brought Luo Hong and Luo Zhu in. Sensing the faint spiritual energy in the air, Luo Hong knew that there was only one spiritual vein that barely reached the medium level under the Shiangan Peak. This kind of spiritual vein can only sustain the daily practice of Jiandan cultivators. It is extremely difficult to break through the Jiandan stage here. Has the spiritual energy of the earth vein been extracted here? Why is the spiritual vein so weak? After taking 2 steps, the doubtful voice of Fairy Silver sounded in Luo Hong's heart. "Fairy, why are you saying this? Is there something wrong with the spiritual vein here?" After Luo Hong carefully sensed it, he did not find anything abnormal, so he could not help but ask through voice transmission. The smell of spiritual energy here is clearly unique to top level spiritual veins. Although it is extremely light, this fairy is very familiar with it and will definitely not make a mistake. Fairy Silver sniffed it twice and said with certainty, "The smell of spiritual energy." Although Luo Hong could not understand why spiritual energy had a smell, since Fairy Silver said so, it must be true. If there really was a top level spiritual vein here, even after the changes of time, it should not have declined to the point where even the medium-sized one could hardly hold on. Haha, it seems that the barrenness of Liao Zhao is not naturally formed. Luo Hong said thoughtfully. Let's not worry about this for now. This fairy remembers that there are always some top level spiritual materials near the top level spiritual veins. Fellow Daoist Luo might as well sneak in to explore. You should gain something. Fairy Yin had already seen Luo Hong's spiritual ascending method, so she made this suggestion at the moment. Oh. In this case, this trip is really the right one. Luo Hong was delighted and silently planned to sneak in. While talking, the 3 of them had passed the protective formation and really entered the Gong family's residence. There were many buildings on Shiangan Peak, all of which were magnificent and golden, like the legendary Lingxiu Palace. But Luo Hong only took a glance and knew that these were all superficial efforts. His spiritual sense did not sense any noteworthy spiritual fluctuations. The Gong family did not let the immortal cultivators in the family live separately from the mortals, so when flying away with the flying tool, Luo Hong saw many mortals busy in various places on Shiangan Peak. Arriving at the halfway point of the mountain, the spiritual energy here was obviously much richer. It was the residence of the direct descendants of the Gong family. After Gong Zuhe arranged Luo Hong in a guest house, she took Lu Zhu to visit her father. Looking at the backs of the 2 girls going away, Luo Hong was about to push the door open and take out the jade slip of heaven to study it carefully. After all, top-level spiritual veins were also rare in ancient times. Perhaps he could find some clues from them, which would facilitate him to sneak into the spiritual veins. to search for treasures in the future. But at this moment, a clear male voice came from the side. Dao Ayao the helper, that's Sister Zuhua invited back from Cheyenne grassland. My name is Gong Yan Wen. May I know your name? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540, Zuanwu Spirit Silk. I'm Luo Hong, a casual cultivator in Liaozhou. Luo Hong replied indifferently. Huh? Didn't Sister Zuhua go to invite the strange barbarian? How come she brought back a casual cultivator whose cultivation level is only the 10th level of key refining? A woman who was about the same age as Gong Zuhua and dressed very coolly walked out from behind Gong Yan Wen, looking at Luo Hong with a puzzled look. This is a matter between Luo and Miss Zuhua, so I don't need to worry about it, fellow Taoist. Luo Hong was in a hurry to find treasure at the moment, so he didn't have time to act with a group of key refining cultivators. After saying this very impolitely, he left the two of them and walked into his own small building. How dare a casual cultivator be so rude to me? Brother Yan Wen, help me teach him a lesson. The cool woman hugged Gong Yan Wen's arm and pressed her soft body against it without any care, shaking back and forth and said bitterly, "Cousin, don't be willful. Now is the time when the family is in danger. If you still fight internally, wouldn't it be self-destruction? I believe that Brother Luo is also in a bad mood. Don't take it to heart." Gong Yan Wen couldn't stand the irritating coquetry of the cool girl. He went out to study at the Hangru Academy, where he learned the sage scriptures and cultivated the noble spirit. Naturally, his temperament was very different from that of ordinary children from aristocratic families. Humph. If I had known that you were so docile, I wouldn't have asked you to go into the mountains with me. I would find Brother P Wu to vent my anger. The cool girl had never left the Gong family since she was born. At most, she would wander around Xinan City. Her temperament was very willful. She immediately dumped Gong Yan Wen and went to find another brother who had returned from another state. Hey, it's obvious that if you take a step back, you can have a broader world. Gong Yan Wen looked at the back of the cool girl and shook his head. After bowing to the door of Luo Hong's Ianalao, he returned to his residence. Just when Luo Hong had a little friction with the Gong family, Gong Zuhua had already met his father. At the top of Xiangang Peak, in the family hall, Gong Zuhua's father was discussing matters with the other helmsman of the Gong family. This included the matter of Gong Zuhua going out to seek help. When he heard that she had returned, he called her in to report it in person. So, under the gaze of her father and a group of uncles, Gong Zuhua told her experience of this trip. That casual cultivator is really so powerful that he can kill the disciples of the Blood Cry sect 1 against 2 instantly. Niece Zuhua, you can't make up stories to avoid family punishment. The second uncle of the Gong family frowned and said with suspicion, "Uncle, this matter concerns my niece's life. How could I lie to him? Otherwise, wouldn't I be deceiving myself?" In addition, Mr. Luo is not only good at water magic and flying swords, but also has a high talent in practicing martial arts. Just a few words of advice to my niece on the way helped me break through a small barrier. It was like a sudden enlightenment. Gong Zuhua was calm and admired Luo Hong very much. According to Zuhua's description, this person must have been lucky enough to pick up the remains of a foundation building cultivator. Otherwise, as a casual cultivator, even if he has extraordinary talent, he would never be able to practice to the 10th level of key refining, let alone have a sharp magic weapon. The fifth uncle of the Gong family stroked his long beard and inferred, even if this person is fine, he has too many conditions. It is clearly taking advantage of the fire. How can we agree? The second uncle of the Gong family glared, as if he was deliberately trying to ruin the matter. Why can't you agree? Even if there are two more, I think I can agree. At this time, the head of the Gong family, who was in the late stage of foundation building, and Gong Zuhua's great uncle, who was sitting at the top, suddenly spoke. Without waiting for the younger generations to ask, he continued, "The reason why our Gong family is in trouble today is because the Fang family has a giant and cultivator. If we want to solve the problem once and for all and avoid danger, our Gong family must have our own giant and cultivator. So in the future I plan to reduce the resources of the core clan members and the older generation of clan members to provide for the younger generation with potential in the family. I think you have suffered a great loss this time, and no one should object anymore, right? The head of the Gong family swept his eyes over the several foundation building clan members present, and saw that some of them were excited, some were unwilling, and some looked away, but no one stood up to object, and he could not help but nodded. The water magic of Luo Xiaoyao brought back by Zuhua is so powerful. It must not be just because of hard practice. I'm afraid that he has a body that is friendly to water spirit, so he is so good at attacking. Such a talent came to the door by himself, and you still want to push him out. Isn't your head stuck in the door? After being reminded by the clan leader, many members of the Gong family present also woke up. There is only 1 in 10,000 such a thing as a body among cultivators. If Luo Hong really has it, he really can't let it go. The clan leader is right. Judging from this person's conditions, he really wants to join our Gong family. Taking this opportunity to rely on our big tree, I think he doesn't know his own value. In order to ensure that this person will not be tempted by the Fang family in the future, I think it is better to marry Zuhua's niece to him and tie him to our Gong family completely. The uncle of the Gong family in the middle stage of foundation building slapped the table and said. Gong Zuhua was stunned. She didn't understand why she was going to get married suddenly, and many elders including his father nodded after hearing it, as if the matter had been decided. After a moment, she finally reacted and said immediately, no, Mr. Luo, I like Lu Zhu. Lu Zhu, who was dozing off on the side, was suddenly patted on the back by Gong Zuhua. She was startled and subconsciously shouted, yes, miss. In the small building on the second floor, Luo Hong had no idea what happened on the top of Xiangang Peak. At this moment, he was putting a jade slip on his forehead, trying to find relevant clues from the vague description of Wenchang Zhenren. After some effort, he finally found a possibly relevant record. In the Shuafeng Plain, 300 miles north by northwest, there is a yellow dragon. I arrested it and subdued it, and refined it into the skyscape and earth submerging vehicle 300 miles north. There is a top-grade spiritual vein that is water-based. It is the residence of a sect. I wanted to explore it but was blocked. I was angry and took action, and obtained the sky-bearing water wheel sutra. Later, I searched for the spiritual vein, and obtained 3 top-grade spiritual stones, and encountered a companion spiritual object. It is very water-based, shaped like catkins, and weighs more than 1,000 pounds, so it is named Zuanwu Spirit Silk. The spiritual vein under Xiangang Peak is a water-based spiritual vein. Even if the spiritual vein level changes, its properties should remain the same. Therefore, if there is a treasure under Xiangang Peak, it is most likely the Zuanwu Spirit Silk. This kind of water-based spiritual object is still very useful for Luo Hong, who practices water-based exercises. He will never miss the opportunity to collect it. Seeing that it was already dark outside, and that it was impossible for the Gong family to come, Luo Hong summoned his avatar with a thought. Have we reached Dajin? After the avatar Luo Hong came out, he immediately sent out his consciousness and looked around. Chapter 541 Portable Spiritual Ascension. Before Han Lao Mo left Xianan, Luo Hong had visited him once, and obtained several thousand-year-old spiritual medicines and the opportunity to comprehend the Brahma sage piece from him. Those thousand-year-old spiritual medicines were cultivated by Han Lao Mo with green liquid. After he came out of Lingmiao Garden, there were 2,000-year-old longevity fruits, and 1,000-year-old earth dragon fungus, and the 9-headed golden sunflower that Luo Hong had asked for was still growing in Han Lao Mo's medicine garden due to lack of time. Longevity fruit, a spiritual medicine that can increase the lifespan of Yuanying cultivators, is not available to Luo Hong at present. He prepared it specifically for Linghu Patriarch. Refining a 1,000-year-old longevity fruit is enough to increase Linghu Patriarch's lifespan by 100 years, but if he takes a second one, the effect will be greatly reduced, and it will only increase his lifespan by 30 or 40 years. The third one is completely useless. Earth Dragon Fungus is a spiritual medicine that nourishes the body and increases potential. Like longevity fruit, it does not need to be refined into a pill, and its medicinal effect can be exerted by taking it directly. This 10,000-year-old earth dragon mushroom was prepared by Luo Hong for the purpose of practicing the third level of the great 5-element Tang Shengju, so he swallowed it. As soon as he got it, the medicinal properties of this ancient spiritual medicine are mild, and it will take at least 10 to 20 years for Luo Hong's body to show obvious changes. Instead, his plan to quickly master the key points of practicing the third level of the great 5-element Tang Shengju by studying this change failed. On the other hand, Luo Hong's incarnation practiced the magic skills recorded in the Brahma Sage True film, which was very smooth. These days, he has been trying to integrate the Great Sun Blue magic skill into the spirit beast bag specially prepared for him by Luo Hong. After all, the magic skills in the Brahma Sage True film were created by the ancient demon world saint's ancestor in order to win over the ancient human world demon clan. It is always a bit awkward to practice with the ancient demon body. Luo Hong did not intend to replicate Han Leomo's Brahma Sage True magic skill, because that was the skill created by the other party using the magic skills in the Brahma Sage True film, plus the Vajraju of the Buddhist sect and the heaven supporting magic skill of the barbarian beard, as well as his own wisdom and perception. Luo Hong, whose cultivation ideas were very different from Han Leomo's, could not be copied, and most likely it was not suitable for him. After calling out the incarnation, Luo Hong's mind moved, and he passed on his memories of the past few years to him through the connection of half a Taoist talisman. The incarnation's eyes were confused for a moment, and then he chuckled and nodded slightly. I understand, you go. I'll take your place here. It's better to be safe than sorry. With the incarnation in the room, Luo Hong can safely sneak into the spiritual vein to search for treasures. So, as soon as the incarnation finished speaking, he performed the earth escape technique and disappeared in the room. After the main body left, Luo Hong's incarnation came to the bed and sat cross-legged and took out a jade slip with a solemn expression and silently comprehended it. He and Luo Hong had the same memory, so he naturally knew that the reason why Han Leomo could cultivate the Brahma True Demon Art to the Nirvana realm was because he had swallowed a large number of dragon scale pills, blood tooth rice and other spiritual objects for physical fitness, which laid an excellent foundation. Although his ancient demon body has a high starting point, it is also obviously shackled. If he does not find his own way, he may only become a passerby on the road of cultivation of his main body. Therefore, what he has to do now is to find his own demonic path like his main body in the key refining stage. In the belly of Shiangang Peak, Luo Hong's earth escape technique almost instinctively allowed him to sneak to the foot of the mountain in just a few breaths. At this time, a thin light curtain blocked his way. It was the mountain protection formation arranged by the Gong family. This kind of giant and level formation could be broken by Luo Hong through the knowledge of formations when he was in the foundation building stage, but it was useless to him at this moment. He was covered with a layer of colorful spiritual light, and he easily passed through the light curtain without causing any reaction. This is not a magical power, but just a basic control of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. For the formation, it was not Luo Hong who just passed through, but a ball of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Afterwards, Luo Hong continued to dive for more than 300 feet and finally reached the vicinity of the spiritual vein. A large amount of water spirit energy rushed towards him, which made Luo Hong feel very comfortable. After opening the petrified demon eyes, Luo Hong immediately saw a blue winding river of light. Although the surrounding area was dim, he could see scattered blue light spots when he looked closely, as if they were once part of the river of light. After seeing this, Luo Hong believed more in the words of the Silver Fairy. The spirit vein here must have suffered some damage, otherwise it would not appear to have been extracted by the Five Evils gathering spirit formation for more than 10 years. I should pay attention to it when I read the Gong family classics in the future. Maybe I can find some clues. It would take more than a day to solve such an ancient secret. Luo Hong did not invest too much energy at the moment. After muttering to himself, he looked around with the petrified demon eyes. He did not want the top grade spirit stone. With the current state of this spirit vein, it was impossible for it to exist. However, there was great hope for the black tortoise spirit silk. No matter what it became, Luo Hong could make it reborn. Under the spiritual vision of the petrified demon's eyes, Luo Hong could easily distinguish different types of spiritual energy. Soon, he found many clumps emitting dark blue light spots at the edge of the blue light river. It was close to the spiritual vein, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was extremely abundant. If it were an ordinary cultivator, he would be broken into the earth escape technique as soon as he approached, and then crushed to death by the endless earth and rocks. But for Luo Hong, who possessed the innate magical power of the 5-element Great Escape, this was not a limitation at all. He easily escaped to a lump and stretched out his hand to grab it in front of him. It's indeed quite heavy. Just weighing it, Luo Hong knew that this was undoubtedly the former Xuanwu spiritual silk. The hollow metal ball shaped like catkins exuded a weak spiritual energy with a hard texture and a faint blue light. From the appearance, it looked like a low-level water-based spiritual material that could only be used to refine magic tools. Before it was upgraded to a spiritual level, Luo Hong had no way to figure out its use. So, after taking 3 more balls, he sacrificed a 4-elephant moving talisman and instantly arrived at the official road outside the city. This place is only 200 or 300 miles away from Xinan, which is still a bit too close for what he is going to do next. So, he moved twice in a row and arrived 1,000 miles away. For Luo Hong, keeping a 4-elephant cart as a backup is like throwing a small fireball to destroy the corpse after killing the enemy. It is something that has been engraved into the deep habit. Taking a step forward, Luo Hong used the method of shrinking the earth into an inch to leave the official road and found a secluded place. After confirming that there was no one around with his spiritual sense, he flipped his palm and took out a delicate jade ball. This thing is a portable one-time spiritual tool he refined. Except for the fact that it makes a lot of noise, it is very useful. Immediately, Luo Hong refined the hollow metal ball brought out from the underground into the delicate jade ball. With a beam of magic light shot out from his fingertips, amazing spiritual waves began to surge from the delicate jade ball. Chapter 542, Yin and Yang Balance. As the spiritual waves exploded, the hard metal wire group in the center area was improving its spiritual level at a very fast speed. When the spiritual energy stored in a delicate jade ball was exhausted, its spiritual level had reached level 20, and it still had not reached the limit. Luo Hong was not surprised by this. After all, it was a top-level spiritual material that could be recorded by Wenshan Zenren. It is estimated that the real spiritual level of the ancient Xuanwu spiritual silk should be level 23, which is a spiritual object at the level of transformation. Originally, although there were many delicate jade balls in Luo Hong's treasure bag, it was limited by its function and could not upgrade the spiritual material to level 23. But after Luo Hong used the Shiangxin fruit to peek into the mystery of the silver tassel text, the half of the Jink Jade book he held opened the door to him, allowing him to peek into the mystery of the immortal family's talismans. The huge improvement in the way of talismans made Luo Hong make a breakthrough in the use of delicate jade. After analyzing a fairy talisman called Zengxin Fu, although he was unable to refine it due to the limitations of materials and cultivation, Luo Hong greatly improved the soul sealing restriction on the exquisite jade ball through a core silver tadpole symbol. The second exquisite jade ball that Luo Hong took out was secretly covered with silver tiny talismans, which looked like thousands at a glance. Luo Hong's current mana could not draw a silver tadpole symbol in one stroke. It would require the qualitative change mana formed after refining the vitality of heaven and earth to do so, which was impossible for cultivators in the human world. Therefore, he could only disassemble a silver tadpole symbol into thousands of silver runes. Although these directly lost the power of the 7 layers of the silver tadpole symbol itself, the soul sealing effect achieved in the end was still more than 20 times stronger than the means he had originally taken. The reason for such a qualitative change was that the new soul sealing restriction contained a trace of the power of the law. At this time, Luo Hong looked at the exquisite jade ball in his hand and couldn't help but feel that it was natural, as if this thing was not artificially refined. The mystery of the law escaped the depths, and Luo Hong could only peek a little bit now, and he still couldn't find a clue to study. After a few breaths of trance, Luo Hong sacrificed the exquisite jade ball, and then merged the metal wire ball that had been upgraded once into it. Protecting his body with the power of heaven and earth, Luo Hong's mind moved, and he saw that the many runes on the exquisite jade ball quickly faded. The next moment, a terrifying spiritual wave came from the center of the jade ball, and a dazzling spiritual light ball directly illuminated the night sky within a few miles. When the internal spiritual energy collapsed to the critical point, the metal wire ball in the center absorbed the spiritual energy crazily. 3 spiritual waves swept Luo Hong almost in order, but they were all twisted by the power of heaven and earth, and no damage was done. Soon, the metal wire ball reached the limit of the spiritual upgrade outside the core. Unless the spiritual upgrade inside the core broke through the natural shackles, it would not be able to continue to improve the spiritual level. That is, it could no longer absorb spiritual energy. And when the metal wire ball no longer absorbed spiritual energy, the exquisite jade ball reached the moment of destruction. A white light flashed suddenly, as if lightning had passed through the night sky, and the remaining spiritual energy was released in the form of a spiritual explosion. After a while of shaking, the small hill, where Luo Hong was located, was wiped out by nearly half. At this moment, Luo Hong was suspended in the air without any injury, looking at the dark blue silk ball in front of him with surprise. Such pure water spiritual energy, if I use it to condense water essence, I can easily obtain 1 yuan of heavy water. As soon as Luo Hong finished speaking, perhaps affected by the spiritual energy overflowing from the black tortoise spiritual silk, it rained heavily in the sky, as if it was going to turn the big pit under Luo Hong into a lake. With a slight flick, the black tortoise spiritual silk in the extreme spiritual state flew into Luo Hong's hand. Compared with the physical properties of the low spiritual level, the black tortoise spiritual silk at this time is very soft and fluffy. Whether it looks or feels, it is very similar to catkins, but the weight is amazing. A ball the size of a walnut weighs 1,000 pounds. According to its physical properties, it is obvious that the black tortoise spiritual silk is suitable for refining powerful water magic weapons. But Luo Hong did not have this need, so its greatest role for Luo Hong was to assist in refining 1 yuan heavy water. After more than 20 years of continuous absorption of the fire energy of the earth fire blue lotus, the black crow true flame has successfully absorbed a trace of the fire element law from it. This also made the power of the black crow true flame undergo a small qualitative change, which was already comparable to the 3 flame fan that Han Leo Mo had not yet refined. However, the substantial increase in the power of the black crow true flame did not bring all good things. The balance of yin and yang in the Kyankan pearl was thus severely damaged. Fortunately, the black crow true flame can exist without the Kyankan pearl, so it can barely be maintained at the moment. But this is not a long-term solution after all. In order to restore the balance, Luo Hong must obtain a large amount of 1 yuan heavy water, which will be refined into 2 yuan heavy water, after being refined into the Kyankan pearl, to enhance the power of the yin side. And with Luo Hong's own refining speed, in order to obtain a sufficient amount of 1 yuan heavy water, he needs to meditate and practice for more than 1,000 years in a place with abundant water-based spiritual energy. Even if Luo Hong advances to the god of transformation in the future, and has a lifespan of 2,000 years, he will not waste 1,000 years on one thing. Therefore, Luo Hong came to Dajin this time with the idea of collecting and purchasing 1 yuan heavy water as much as possible. Of course, he did not expect to buy enough 1 yuan heavy water directly, so he must rely on refining a part of it himself, and it is best to control it within 100 years. The emergence of the black tortoise spirit silk can greatly improve Luo Hong's efficiency in refining 1 yuan heavy water, and it is estimated that the effect of refining for 100 years can be equivalent to the original 200 years. Although there is still a gap of 800 years, this undoubtedly reduces some of Luo Hong's burden. Since the black tortoise spirit silk can save his lifespan for 100 years in disguise, Luo Hong will not be stingy with the loss of the exquisite jade ball. After quickly upgrading the remaining 2 metal wire balls to black tortoise spirit silk, he sacrificed the 4 symbols moving talisman and returned to Xiangang Peak. Taking advantage of the convenience of the 5-element Great Escape, he began a crazy search. While Luo Hong was constantly acquiring materials for the spiritual ascension of the black tortoise spirit silk, 4 or 5 Gong family cultivators gathered outside his residence on Xiangang Peak. Brother P. Wu, this is it. The casual cultivator who bullied me not long ago lives here. You must help me vent my anger. The Kinglian female cultivator shook the arm of a young man with starry eyebrows and sword-like eyes, and said in a pretentious manner, "Don't worry, cousin Yanhe, although our Gong family is in danger, it is not something that can be bullied by just any cat or dog. Today, I, Gong Pi Wu, will teach those who look down on our Gong family an unforgettable lesson." While speaking righteously, Gong Pi Wu released his magical aura of the 12th level of Qi refining, which made the same mage clan members beside him envious and respectful. Brother Pi Wu, Brother Luo came to my Gong family to lend a helping hand. Today we just had a few quarrels. There's no need to make it so awkward. I hope Brother Pi Wu will think twice about this matter. Gong Yanwen heard the noise and walked out of his own building. Seeing that Gong Pi Wu was here to cause trouble, he frowned and tried to dissuade him. Chapter 543, Qualitative Change in Power. HMPH, Brother Yan Wen, you don't need to worry about this matter. Those broken rules of your Hangru Academy have nothing to do with me. Among the younger generation of the Gong family, Gong Yanwen is the only obstacle for Gong Pi Wu to obtain the title of the first person. Moreover, he is very disgusted with Gong Yanwen's always polite and pretentious style. At this time, instead of thinking twice, he became more determined to make trouble for Luo Hong. In his opinion, his appearance this time is not just to teach a casual cultivator a lesson, but involves a dispute within the clan, which is related to real resources. It's okay, Brother Yan Wen. Brother Pi Wu is a senior disciple of the Wuji Sword Palace. He will know how to control his actions, and will not make things worse. Gong Yanhe was afraid that Gong Yanwen would mess up the situation, so she tried to smooth things over. Otherwise, the two of them would fight before she could vent her anger. This is not a question of whether to make a big fuss or not. This is. Gong Yanwen frowned, and just as he was about to say something, he heard Gong Pi Wu suddenly shouting with his magic power, "I'm Gong Pi Wu, and I have something to discuss with Taoist Luo. Please open the door." Taoist, don't think of staying at home. The restrictions of this small building can't stop me. The implication was that he was going to force his way in. As soon as he finished speaking, a creaky sound of the door opening came, and a man in black clothes with a blank look in his eyes, who seemed to be thinking hard about some difficult problem, slowly walked out. Although his clothes and temperament had changed, this person was Luo Hong. Brother Pi Wu, what's wrong with this person? Was he scared by you? Why is he so weird? Gong Yanhe saw that Luo Hong looked like he was wandering in the sky and couldn't help but feel strange, and said to Gong Pi Wu, "HMPH, you dare to ignore me like this? Come out to meet and still comprehend the skills. How rude." Fellow Daoist Luo, Gong has no other intentions in coming here, just don't want you to underestimate my Gong family cultivators. You and I will fight and stop when we are done. Do you dare to come? HMM. Fellow Daoist Luo, Gong Pi Wu shouted, and finally woke Luo Hong up from his meditation, but his eyes were still hazy, and only 10% of his spirit returned. "I'm so angry, watch out." Gong Pi Wu was immediately angered by Luo Hong's careless attitude. He shook off Gong Yanhe and strode forward, pinching the formula to cast a spell. Sensing the fluctuation of spiritual energy, Luo Hong's incarnation's mind returned a little. Looking at the water snake gradually taking shape in front of the strange cultivator, he couldn't help but say, "Water snake technique, 23 degrees, not bad." Degree is a unit defined by Luo Hong himself to measure the power of an attack. Generally speaking, without any bonus, the power of the firebomb technique cast by an ordinary Qi refining cultivator is 1 degree. With this data, the mana utilization rate of the corresponding spell or magical power can be calculated based on the mana consumed by the spell or magical power. The results obtained by Luo Hong after research show that the mana utilization rate of all low-level spells is around 2. In other words, after a standard unit of mana is transformed into a low-level spell such as Firebomb, its power will be doubled. The utilization rate of the primary and intermediate water snake spell, which can also be called a lever, is 3. In addition, the mana output limit of this spell is 5 units. Calculated, the maximum power of the water snake spell should be 15 degrees. However, Gong Pi Wu obviously increased its power by 8 degrees through his own skills or the secret skills he practiced. An increase of nearly 60% is already very rare for a key refining cultivator. Because of this, Luo Hong's incarnation said not bad. But in Gong Pi Wu's ears, Luo Hong was undoubtedly provocative, so he didn't care whether Luo Hong was prepared or not, and let the condensed water snake shoot out. "Brother Luo, be careful," Gong Yanwen shouted when he saw that Luo Hong did not summon the protective spirit shield in time. However, just as he was about to help, he saw a stream of black water suddenly appear in front of Luo Hong, and with just one rush, it defeated the water snake that Gong Pi Wu had shot. HMPH. No wonder you dare to be so rude to cousin Yanhua. You really have some tricks, but it's a pity that you met me today. You are destined to lose. After the probing attack was blocked, Gong Pi Wu sneered and immediately pinched his sword fingers and summoned the magic weapon flying sword behind him. Top grade magic weapon flying sword, 52 degrees, average. The expression of Luo Hong's incarnation did not change at all. After a faint evaluation, he drove the water flow he had just summoned to protect himself. Although it would not be a problem if he was hit, the original body had explained that he could not reveal the truth. After a few rounds, Gong Yanwen's expression gradually changed, and he no longer had the slightest worry. Because, without moving an inch, Luo Hong actually blocked Gong Pi Wu's flying sword with just one spell, and it was obvious that he had a lot of strength left. On the other hand, Gong Pi Wu was in a dilemma at this time. If he couldn't even break the defense, he would lose face today. Suddenly, he was ruthless and recalled the flying sword to his chest. After a period of reluctant spell casting, his face suddenly lit up, and he pointed his sword and shot out a stream of blue water. Haha, it's done. Fellow Daoist Luo, you can be defeated by gongs, leaving the water and swimming dragon, which is an honorable defeat. As he spoke, the stream of water wrapped around the flying sword and transformed into a thin and hazy dragon shadow. Sword formula. 104 degrees, getting worse and worse. Luo Hong's incarnation was not moved by Gong Pi Wu's words, but shook his head slightly. Because, although the power of Gong Pi Wu's attack was higher than before, the leverage multiple was reduced instead of increased. However, this should be related to his lack of proficiency in this move, and has nothing to do with the sword technique itself. Still talking stubbornly, look at the sword. Gong Pi Wu's face darkened, and he immediately drove the flying sword to pierce Luo Hong's left shoulder in anger. After a splash sound of water, Gong Pi Wu could not help but be stunned. His full strength attack did not bring any changes, and he was still hit by the opponent's magic and bounced away, without hurting the opponent at all. No, this is impossible. What kind of magic did you use? Gong Pi Wu shouted unwillingly. It's not his fault that he lost his composure, because the means of Luo Hong's incarnation were really unreasonable in his opinion. Magic? Luo didn't use any magic. I just conjured up a stream of spiritual water, but it was a spiritual water that had undergone qualitative change. After Luo Hong's incarnation threw down a sentence, he wanted to return to the small building to continue to comprehend and improve his magic skills. Wait, fellow Daoist Luo, may I ask what qualitative changes? Gong Yanwen suddenly got a start, and he didn't know what he thought of. He hurriedly stepped forward and asked anxiously. Take water magic as an example. From water bullet magic to water snake magic, and then to water gun magic, they are all quantitative changes. Although the power changes greatly, the leverage multiple increase is very small. It is just to exchange more mana for greater power. Qualitative changes about the order of magnitude increase in the leverage multiple. Although the attack power of low-level thunder magic is high, its leverage multiple is only 5 or 6. If it is replaced by the white thunder of the sky thunder bamboo, its leverage multiple can reach more than 20 times. And the qualitative change is not one level, but multiple qualitative changes. Take the sky thunder bamboo as an example. The thunder produced by this bamboo will be the white thunder of the first qualitative change after 500 years, the silver thunder of the second qualitative change after 3000 years, and the gold thunder of the third qualitative change after 10,000 years. Each level of qualitative change can reach a leverage multiple of more than 20. The 3 superpositions are more than 8,000 times the leverage multiple, thus obtaining the famous evil repelling divine thunder. Most of Luo Hong's incarnation's mind was in a state of contemplation. When asked by Gong Yanwen, he explained it to himself. Chapter 544, Confusion of Incarnation. Hey, although there are only more than 20 pieces of Zuanwu spiritual silk, as long as you repeatedly upgrade the spirit, it is enough to use. The role of Zuanwu spiritual silk for Luo Hong is not in itself, but in its core properties. To put it in an analogy, it is a tool for Luo Hong to efficiently purify spiritual energy. Before it is worn out, it can be reused. After putting the several metal wire balls in his hand into the Wanbao bag, Luo Hong, who was in a good mood, fled upwards and soon came to the bottom of his 2-story building. At this time, his spiritual sense sensed multiple auras that were gathering near his residence, and there were 2 acquaintances among them. What's going on? Are you here to cause trouble? Luo Hong frowned slightly, and in a flash, he came to the 2nd floor of his residence without anyone noticing, and looked down. He saw that the incarnation was sitting cross-legged on the ground, in a state of meditation and selflessness, talking endlessly about some of his past research. Opposite him, there were 5 key refining monks from the Gong family sitting upright and listening. Although qualitative change is a core, the power of quantitative change cannot be ignored. If we want to pursue the power of magic, we must pursue quantitative change on the basis of qualitative change. This is a 1 yuan heavy water condensed by Luo Mao using the method. It has a leverage multiple of 12 times. Under the limit of Luo Mao's 20 units of mana supply, it can exert 240 degrees of power. But if it is condensed into a bowl and compressed again, Luo Hong's incarnation said, and he summoned the black spiritual water and condensed it into a dark green seed. Then it can add 2 times the leverage to double its power. Good guy, you are giving a lecture here. Luo Hong narrowed his eyes slightly, revealing a speechless expression. The research on the power and leverage multiples of magical powers is the work done by Luo Hong in order to better summarize the various magical powers in the mortal world. After all, there are thousands of thunder methods alone. If they are not systematically sorted out, it is really a headache. Multiple qualitative changes exist in all the great magical powers. This state of the incarnation is probably related to his desire to create the supreme magic. At this time, Gong Piwu had long forgotten the original purpose of his coming here. Although he did not quite understand what Luo Hong said, his spiritual perception as an immortal cultivator told him that these were the deep mysteries of the immortal way, so he could not help but indulge in them. Finally, after Luo Hong stopped talking, Gong Piwu asked respectfully before Gong Yanwen, "Fellow Daoist Luo, may I ask what is the limit of cultivators like us in the key refining stage?" The attack power limit of cultivators at each stage is only related to 2 factors. One is the maximum mana output unit of the cultivator at that stage, which is the base number of the power formula. The second is the highest lever multiple that the cultivator has mastered. Because the power of qualitative change will cause a huge burden on itself. For cultivators in the key refining stage, a single qualitative change is already the limit of cultivation. Even if the upper limit is raised through physical and mental cultivation, the theoretical limit of the lever multiple of cultivators in the key refining stage is only 32 times. Without considering the extreme situation and focusing on the overall situation, the attack power of cultivators in the key refining stage is between 5 and 150 degrees. The attack power of cultivators in the foundation establishment stage is between 300 and 1000 degrees. Core formation. Luo doesn't know this either. Haha. Finally, before the incarnation could talk more and more outrageously, Luo Hong stopped him and used telepathy to make him sober up. Haha. The Jiandan of a Jiandan stage cultivator is a qualitative change in the output of mana, so it is used as a dividing point between high level and low level cultivators. How could a little guy like you at the 10th level of key refining possibly understand it? Don't let me get away with it. Luo Hong said in a voice transmission, furious. Haha, original body, these are all accidents, I will deal with them immediately. The incarnation responded knowing that he was in the wrong. Seeing that Luo Hong had no intention of continuing, Gong Yanwen stood up and bowed respectfully, saying, listening to your words today is really better than reading for 10 years. I wonder which master did fellow Daoist Luo learn from? Haha, I've already said that Luo is a casual cultivator. It's precisely because no one teaches me that I can only think about it by myself. It's getting late now. Please go back and rest. The incarnation was about to see the guests off when he sensed several breaths coming from the top of the peak. The spiritual light in the night sky was very obvious. Although Gong Yanwen and others were not very good at spiritual awareness, they also noticed that someone was coming here. Hey, tonight is really lively. When Luo Hong's incarnation saw Gong Zuhua's expression among the visitors, he knew that there must be trouble again. Patriarch. After the visitor landed, Gong Yanwen and others saw the white-haired old man in the lead, and they immediately felt a chill in their hearts, and saluted at the same time. Late stage of foundation building. In the bitter cold place of Liaozhou, it is not easy to cultivate to this level. Are you Luo Hong? The head of the Gong family did not say anything polite. After walking a few feet away from Luo Hong, he asked with great authority, I'm you. The incarnation naturally would not be frightened by the momentum of a mere foundation building cultivator, and responded calmly, well, you are indeed a good boy. I heard from Zuhua that you are interested in joining my Gong family. Is this true? After looking at Luo Hong, the head of the Gong family nodded slightly. Yes, Luo knows that it is difficult for a casual cultivator to build a foundation. In order to continue the immortal path, I sincerely want to join the Gong family. Luo Hong had already copied the relevant memories to his incarnation, so he was quite calm at the moment. Very good, my Gong family is in need of people now. Since you are willing to join, my Gong family will welcome you. Moreover, I see that you are also a hard-working cultivator, so I will take the initiative to hand over the girl Lu Zhu to you for care. Are you willing? When the head of the Gong family said this, Luo Hong's incarnation and Gong Piwu and others were stunned. As a member of the family, Gong Piwu and others knew that their head of the family wanted to tie Luo Hong up by means of marriage. After all, as long as he left an heir, it would be difficult for him to leave. But Lu Zhu was only born in a branch of the Gong family. If she did not have the qualifications to cultivate immortals, she would not even be worthy of being Gong Zuhua's maid. This bargaining chip was a bit low. Clan leader, fellow Daoist Luo is very talented, so you'll betroth Lzu to him, right? After what happened just now, Gong Piwu admired Luo Hong so much that he couldn't help but speak up for him. Haha, you are really hospitable, you made friends so quickly. However, they are in love with each other, so don't bother. The head of the Gong family looked at Gong Piwu in surprise. Knowing that the other party was arrogant, he couldn't help but be a little curious about what happened here before. At this time, Lzu, one of the parties involved, blushed, lowered her head, and twisted her fingers, and complained to Gong Zuhua through voice transmission, Miss, are you really okay? What if Mr. Luo agrees? Don't worry, Lzu, he won't. Mr. Luo is a gentleman, how could he be interested in a little girl like you? Gong Zuhua comforted her through voice transmission. She didn't really want to harm Lzu. In her opinion, as long as she made such a gesture, Luo Hong would understand the meaning of rejection. After all, the other party was not an unwise person. At that time, she can avoid being forced into marriage, and Lu Zhu will not really marry, and everyone will be happy. What do you mean by mutual affection? How come I'm in love with this little girl? Is there any deletion in the memory, copied by the original body? No, my aesthetics are the same as the original body. Although this little girl is cute, she will never make the original body have evil thoughts. Among them, when the incarnation was thinking, he suddenly saw Gong Zuhua's expression was different. After a little thought, he understood the general process of the matter. Chapter 545 New Disciple. It's a pity that she could come up with such a plan. Isn't this desperate? If I agree to it now, this little girl will be cheated. It seems that this girl has a good impression of the main body. Forget it, I won't think too much. I'll deal with it first, and then let the main body worry about it. Luo Hong's incarnation shook his head in his heart. He didn't want to waste his time on creating magic skills on such things. This Gong clan leader, although Luo has some fate with Miss Lu Zhu, she is still young at this time. Let's talk about this later. Hearing this, Lu Zhu immediately cheered up and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Gong Zuha on the side also cast a grateful look at Luo Hong, thinking that this farce was over. Haha, although this girl is young, her cultivation is not weak. If she helps, fellow Daoist Luo's foundation building path will be much easier. Lu Zhu, let fellow Daoist Luo see what you can do. However, the head of the Gong clan obviously would not give up so easily and changed a way to tempt. Yes, clan leader. Lu Zhu's status in the Gong family was low, so she naturally did not dare to disobey. She immediately used her best water magic. Luo Hong's incarnation was thinking about how to refuse, but when he saw this scene, he couldn't help but exclaimed, and then asked, "May I ask what kind of martial arts Miss Lu Zhu is practicing?" "I practice the most basic water martial arts, Zio Shuyu and Gong." Lu Zhu put away the magic and answered truthfully. Fellow Daoist Luo, don't mind this. As long as you accept Lu Zhu, she will naturally not be a maid. The family will definitely give her a high-level martial arts. The head of the Gong family was afraid that Luo Hong would care about this, so he immediately promised. Zio Shuyu and Gong? Interesting. Luo Hong's incarnation seemed to have thought of something, and the corners of his mouth curled up, and he muttered in a low voice. Fellow Daoist Luo, what did you say? Before the head of the Gong family finished speaking, everyone heard Luo Hong say, "Then Luo, I would like to thank the head of the clan for his kindness." On the second floor of the small building, Luo Hong's original body looked at the farce below and shook his head slightly, but he was not worried. After all, he and the incarnation had the same emotional memories, and he would never agree to marry at this time, even if the object was Gong Zuha, a direct descendant of the Gong family, so the incarnation would never agree. On this point, Luo Hong was very confident. "Then Luo, I would like to thank the head of the clan for his kindness." Exclamation mark. Agreed, exclamation mark. Hey, what the hell? What the hell are you doing? Luo Hong's eyes widened, and he transmitted his voice with a heart full of incomprehension. "Hey, original body, don't worry, I picked up a treasure for you, you will understand later." The incarnation not only did not feel that he had done something wrong, but was very proud. This sounded incredible, but Luo Hong calmed down and thought carefully, and knew that it should be true. As mentioned before, Luo Hong and the incarnation have the same emotional memories, so under the same circumstances, they will inevitably make the same choice. In other words, if Luo Hong's real body was downstairs at this time, he would also choose to accept the green bamboo. After thinking this through, Luo Hong sat down quietly. After a while, he heard footsteps coming upstairs. The Gong family has left, and the girl is downstairs now. "Hey, it's really worthy of the evil old society." The maid said to send someone away, and she was sent away. The incarnation sat down opposite Luo Hong carelessly and poured himself a cup of tea. "What secrets does the girl have that made you make such a decision?" "I scanned her thoroughly with my spiritual sense, but I didn't see anything." Luo Hong looked calm, waiting for the incarnation's explanation. "That's because you ignored the degree of the spell she cast. It was 1.5 degrees higher than normal." The incarnation proudly explained the reason for his change of mind. Others may not understand what he said and think that it is not worth worrying about the degree being higher, but Luo Hong knows the meaning. His attack power calculation formula is very accurate. It is impossible to increase it by 1.5 degrees, or even 0.1 degrees, unless there is a hidden factor in Lu Zhu that changes the attack power. And with the incarnation's consciousness, there is no magic weapon on Lu Zhu that can be hidden from him. In other words, the unknown factor is most likely herself. "You mean, this little girl is hiding some kind of magic body?" Luo Hong pondered for a moment and asked speculatively. "Yes, her magic body should be quite high level, so it will not be revealed in the key refining stage, which is not a rare situation. Aren't you worried about the one you and heavy water? This little girl is simply a tool delivered to your door." The incarnation knows the horror of the Kyankan pearl. Although this treasure has just been refined and is far from its limit, its leverage ratio has reached 8,500 times the triple qualitative change through the double qualitative change of the yin and yang sides. With the blessing of thousands of Luo Hong's mana output in an instant, it can burst out an attack power of more than 30 million degrees. This is also among the best of Luo Hong's methods. And the normal late stage Yuan cultivator can only reach 10 or 20 million degrees with all his strength. As Luo Hong's treasure of proof, Kaiang Kunzu can definitely be said to have infinite potential. Ahem. It's too bad to say that she is a tool person. If this girl can really help me condense 1 yuan heavy water, I will naturally accept her as my disciple. When Luo Hong realized that Lu Zhu might have a water-based body, the idea of a tool person flashed through his mind, but after hearing what the incarnation said, he couldn't help but dispel it for the sake of face. Haha, it's up to you. The original body, the girl will come up later. You can send me back to the spirit beast bag first. The incarnation said nonchalantly. Well, I'm sorry to bother you for now. When I arrive at the capital of the Jin dynasty, I will definitely buy a Xianji house. Although the incarnation's demon body is so powerful that he is not afraid of the spatial pressure in the spirit beast bag, it will still be a little uncomfortable and affect his understanding of the magic. Besides, the incarnation is him. Thinking of staying in the spirit beast bag, Luo Hong feels very uncomfortable. Then I'll wait. After leaving the last sentence, the incarnation turned into a beam of light and entered the spirit beast bag on Luo Hong's waist. After a few breaths, footsteps at different times came from the stairs. After waiting for a long time, Luo Hong did not see the figure of Lu Zhu, as if this staircase was an endless mountain. Ahem. Don't worry, Miss Lu Zhu. I won't touch you. Luo Hong naturally knew what Lu Zhu was worried about and promised immediately. Mr. Luo, are you sure you are not lying to Lu Zhu? A head popped out from the stair railing, looking at Luo Hong with panic. Absolutely not. I have kept you here for something else. Come here first. Luo Hong said solemnly. Perhaps seeing that there was no evil intent in Luo Hong's eyes, Lu Zhu walked in front of Luo Hong with courage. At the same time, Luo Hong was also looking at his new tool. No, new disciple. Chapter 546 Agreement. Don't ask anything first, just stretch out your hand. Luo Hong motioned Lu Zhu to sit down opposite him and said solemnly, oh. Lu Zhu was used to following orders and immediately handed her white and tender wrist to Luo Hong obediently. Next, Luo will send a stream of magic power into your body just to check the condition of your meridians. Don't resist, just relax your mind, it will be over soon. Luo Hong stretched out his sword finger and pressed on Lu Zhu's wrist, driving a subtle stream of magic power into Lu Zhu's meridians. After some exploration, Luo Hong found that there were indeed many innate meridians in Lu Zhu's body, but because the operation lines of her skills did not overlap with them, they did not appear. In short, Lu Zhu did have a hidden body, but because of the incompatibility of her skills, it did not show any unusual features. This time, the incarnation really picked up a loophole. Although it is not yet clear what kind of body Lu Zhu has, it is undoubtedly water friendly. With the resources Luo Hong has, he will be able to train Lu Zhu to be a cultivator in the early stage of giant in more than 100 years. By then, with her help in refining 1 yuan heavy water, Luo Hong can save at least 200 years. Well, Mr. Luo, is there any problem with Lu Zhu? Luo Hong's magic power flowed through her body, and Lu Zhu felt warm all over, as if she had eaten something tonic. But as Luo Hong's mouth curled up with a satisfied smile, Lu Zhu couldn't help but feel very uneasy and asked weakly, no, you are fine. If possible, tell Luo about your family situation. After confirming Lu Zhu's value, Luo Hong already regarded her more important than the entire Gong family. And since he has decided to accept Lu Zhu as his disciple, she will definitely be able to reach the Jiandan realm, so the worldly ties that can be cut off should be cut off as soon as possible to avoid delaying the progress. Luo's parents died early, and my uncles thought I was unlucky, so they drove me out. If it weren't for the time when the master family tested my spiritual roots, I was tested to have a 3rd grade spiritual root, and I would have starved to death on the street. Speaking of relatives, the young lady who grew up with Luo should be the only one. When asked by Luo Hong, Luo's expression suddenly became gloomy. After telling the story in a wronged manner, she didn't know what she thought of, and suddenly woke up and said, "Mr. Luo, why are you asking this? Are you really going to marry me? You're a 12-year-old girl, what can I do with you if I marry you?" However, Luo is indeed planning to keep you by my side, and even leave the Gong family. In return, Luo will provide you with a large number of elixirs to improve your cultivation, so that you can break through the foundation building stage before the age of 20. Are you willing? The immortal way is tempting, and Luo Hong is confident that Lzu will not let go of such a good thing. Building a foundation before the age of 20 is difficult even for the core disciples of those big sects. "No, I don't want to." Lzu doesn't want to leave the young lady. Lzu pulled her hand back suddenly and refused without thinking. Her big watery eyes looked at Luo Hong vigilantly, as if he was a bad guy who kidnapped a child. "Well, don't you think about it? That's the foundation building stage, and you can live for 200 years. Look, these are 3 foundation building pills. Luo didn't lie to you." Luo Hong was choked by Lzu's response and took out 3 pills with his palm, persuading her. "Even if it's true, Lzu won't leave the young lady. If you force me, Mr. Luo, I will go to the clan leader to complain." Lzu looked at the 3 pills with powerful spiritual energy and said with a firm look, "It's over. This little girl has been brainwashed." Although soft tactics are not working now, Luo Hong didn't want to use force. After all, he couldn't lose face, so he had to find another way. "Miss Gong is so good to you, but you are so reluctant to let her go. She gave you to me." "Humph, that's because you deceived the young lady. We thought the young master was a gentleman, but we didn't expect that he would secretly covet a little maid like me." Lu Zhu couldn't stand hearing others say anything bad about Gong Zuhe, so she immediately retorted, "In that case, do you know that Miss Gong is about to die?" Luo Hong's expression became serious, and he said very seriously, "How could it be?" Mr. Luo is referring to the Wuan Mountains, but this time, Mr. Luo is protecting Miss. How could Miss still get into trouble? Is Mr. Luo planning to break his promise? Lu Zhu stared at Luo Hong with an angry face. Since Luo has agreed, he will not break his promise. It is not difficult to save Gong Zuhe from the bloody battle in the Wuan Mountains, but after that, I'm afraid that the Gong family will be in great trouble. Luo Hong leaned back and said lightly, "Mr. Luo, how can you be so alarmist? What is your basis for saying that the Gong family will be exterminated?" Lzu pouted and said angrily, "Haha, just based on this." Luo Hong released some of his magic power. Anyway, there was a formation he had set up in the small building, so he was not afraid of being noticed by the outside world. After a breath, Luo Hong withdrew his magic power and restored his cultivation to the 10th level of key refining. In Lzu's stunned eyes, he said calmly, "As long as you agree to Luo's conditions, Luo will eliminate the existence that threatens your young lady and the Gong family. You should think about it carefully. In addition, you don't have to be afraid. Luo is not an evil cultivator of the magic way. He will not kill you just because you don't agree. At most, he will seal your memory. Well, give me an answer before this morning." After saying that, Luo Hong left Lzu, who was still in a daze, and went downstairs. 3 days later, outside Luo Hong's 2-story building, Gong Zuhe paced back and forth at the door with an anxious look on her face. "Cousin Zuhe, brother Luo is a great talent. He will definitely be able to build a foundation in the future. Lzu will not suffer if she follows him. Why do you have to worry about this?" Gong Yanwen saw Gong Zuhe's slightly haggard appearance and could not help but persuade her. In the past 3 days, Luo Hong had been guiding Gong Yanwen and others in their cultivation in order to bury the pit of the incarnation, which benefited them greatly. They had already been convinced by Luo Hong in their hearts. Even Gong Yanhua, who originally had conflicts with Luo Hong, was jealous of Lzu and wanted to replace her. Therefore, Gong Yanwen really couldn't figure out why cousin Zuhe was so anxious. "Brother Yanwen, you don't understand. Lzu has been very wrong these days. She deliberately avoided me. I know Lzu. There must be something hidden in this. I must ask clearly." Gong Zuhe was worried about Lzu's abnormal behavior on the one hand, and blamed herself for pushing Lzu out to replace herself on the other hand. Seeing that he could not persuade her, Gong Yanwen stopped talking, shook his head, and fled to the top of the mountain to attend the daily tea party centered on Luo Hong. About an hour later, Gong Zuhe finally blocked Lu Zhu. She held her and asked her questions, but in return, she only smiled and remained silent. After she left in anger and confusion, Lu Zhu secretly squatted down, tears welling up in her eyes. In the tea pavilion, Luo Hong, who saw this scene with her spiritual sense, couldn't help but twitched her mouth. I want to train you to be a giant and cultivator, not to be a furnace tripod. You are acting Kanye for me here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547 Unexpected Acquaintance. On Xiangang Peak, although Luo Hong had just arrived at the Gong family, he had integrated into the young generation of the Gong family in a short period of time. The head of the Gong family also agreed to Luo Hong's browsing of their family classics. Of course, he did not open those important core classics. However, the head of the family would never have thought that their self-proclaimed foolproof protection measures were equivalent to nothing in front of Luo Hong. Although the Gong family was not large, it was also a family of immortal cultivation that had been passed down from ancient times to the present. The classics they collected provided great help to Luo Hong in understanding the Great Jin, allowing him to get rid of the situation of being in the dark. In this way, after Luo Hong stayed in Xiangang Peak for more than 2 months, the day of the opening of the Wuan mountain range was finally approaching. Due to the special nature of the opening of the mountain range this time, the head of the Gong family personally led the team, led Luo Hong and others, and took a large flying boat to the Wuan mountain range. On the flying boat, Luo Hong glanced around and found that the Gong family had only sent 18 family cultivators this time, which was 2 people short of the 20 people that should have been gathered. Obviously, the missing quota was caused by the assassination of the cultivator of the Blood Christ sect. Gong Yanwen and Gong Piwu were able to escape, not because of their powerful means, but because they were closer. Almost all the members of the Gong family who were cultivating outside were killed, as long as they were far away. Luo Hong was not surprised by this. After all, an assassin monk specially cultivated by a large sect was not something that ordinary cultivators could resist. The spell that hid in the shadows was difficult for cultivators of the same level to detect. Therefore, although there were only 2 people missing, the overall strength of the Gong family team was more than twice weaker than the head of the Gong family expected. Among the 18 people, only 5 had a cultivation level above the 11th level of key refining, and most of the rest were only at the 10th level of key refining. If the head of the Gong family did not know that the members below the 9th level of key refining would die, he would probably have gathered all the places. After all, the spiritual medicine in the Wuan mountains was one of the lifeblood of the Gong family. If it was lost for a long time, the Gong family would continue to weaken due to its strength, and the surrounding small cultivation forces would be ready to move without the Fang family attacking. The flying boat flew for 5 days before they arrived at a small hill outside the Wuan mountains. Brother Luo, are you still looking at this black-wined absolute breath formation? Haha, I think I was also stunned for a long time when I first saw this magnificent scene. Seeing Luo Hong looking at the huge black tornado in the distance, Gong Piwu couldn't help but come forward to talk to him. This formation is very powerful. Brother Piwu, do you know where it comes from? Luo Hong was not pretending at all at this moment. He really didn't expect that the formation controlled by 5 immortal families that didn't even have a Danji stage cultivator could be so powerful. After using the physical examination form to detect it, he actually concluded that this formation was causing more than 1,000,000 degrees of destructive power at all times. This is just the normal state of this formation. If someone attacks it forcefully, it can at least burst out 10 times the power. That is, the power reaches a level of tens of millions of degrees. In this case, even a cultivator in the late Yuanying stage would find it extremely difficult to break this formation violently. Gong is not very clear. Anyway, it is passed down from ancient times. Only our 5 families use their own tokens and use their blood essence to activate them, so that we can open a gap in this formation at a specific time. Gong Pi Wu told him what he knew frankly. This is the foundation of the big family. Luo Hong sighed, but in fact he was already heartbroken. The Black Wind Absolute Breath formation is so powerful that he obviously can't sneak in by relying on his cultivation. If he triggers the ban, it will be difficult to end. And if he wants to guarantee that he can enter the Wuoan mountain range 100%, he must bleed a little. Damn it, I hope that little girl Lasu won't let me down, otherwise I will lose a lot today. Alas, the only Takesu healing talisman I refined, I didn't expect to waste some of its power here. After Luo Hong complained in his heart for a while, he turned his palm in his sleeve and took out a talisman with a gold background and silver lines. This talisman was a treasure he refined by weakening those immortal talismans after he comprehended the Golden Palace Jade Book. After being refined, the appearance is very similar to those powerful talismans handed down from ancient times. It is obvious that the two are from the same source. The function of the Takesu healing talisman is very simple, which is to allow Luo Hong to ignore most of the array restrictions. In principle, it is similar to his use of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to wrap himself, but the method is much more mysterious, and it contains a hint of law. This talisman was prepared by Luo Hong for Wentian Cave Mansion and Kunwu Divine Mountain, so although it would not waste much power to pass through an array, he still felt heartbroken. However, time is priceless after all, and in order to let the little girl Lasu be his apprentice with peace of mind, Luo Hong also made up his mind. After sticking the Takesu healing talisman inside his robe and ready to activate it at any time, Luo Hong's spiritual sense sensed that in several locations surrounding the Black Tornado, the teams of several families have actually arrived one after another. Unlike the Blood Forbidden Land, the 7 sects need to break the restrictions together. The 5 families need to stand in 5 different positions to activate the Black Wind Absolute Breath Array and activate the Ancestral Token at the same time. Thanks to the help of the restriction of the formation, the people of the 5 families can sense each other without being limited by their spiritual sense, as long as they offer the token, so it is not difficult to activate them at the same time. Moreover, after the entrance is opened, every cultivator who enters the formation will be seen by the person who activates the token. If something is wrong, the holder of the token can immediately interrupt the casting and close all the entrances. It is precisely because of this check and balance that the 5 families have been restrained on the issue of the Wuoan mountain range for many years. This crisis was caused by the Fang family, and Luo Hong was the first to investigate them. He only saw his spiritual sense sweeping over, and the head of the Fang family who led the team did not notice it at all, and the key refining clan members behind him with ferocious smiles knew nothing about it. 10 family cultivators above the 11th level of key refining. 10 Blood Cry sect cultivators in black robes with strange auras. Haha, they really came prepared. These 10 black-robed cultivators have similar evil auras, and they obviously practiced the same kind of skills. They must be the core of the Fang family's plot this time. Luo Hong analyzed it silently in his heart, and then moved his mind away. After all, he wished that the Blood Cry Patriarch could come in person, so that he could complete the agreement with Luo Zhu in one step. Even if a few key refining disciples have connections, they can't make any big waves. The Song family, which is adjacent to the Fang family, seemed to have not been assassinated by the Blood Cry sect, and easily gathered 20 high-quality cultivators. This further confirmed Luo Hong's speculation that the Song family and the Fang family were connected. However, it didn't matter. Luo Hong didn't care either. There was nothing unusual about the other Ning family and the Ma family. The situation was basically the same as the Gong family. If Luo Hong hadn't intervened, they would have come to deliver food today. However, when Luo Hong's consciousness casually swept across the Ning family's team, a figure in the team startled him and made him lose his breath. Xiang the Old Ghost. Chapter 548 Blood Cloud Covering the Sky. Although Luo Hong had been deliberately avoiding Xiang Zili when he was in the Yellow Maple Valley of U State, he was familiar with Han Lao Mo and had met him twice. Therefore, Luo Hong had long remembered Xiang Zili's appearance. However, because Xiang Zili used a secret technique, to transform himself into his younger appearance. Luo Hong's consciousness did not discover his identity when he first scanned him. If this divine transformation cultivator had not despised him and did not try his best to restrain his aura, Luo Hong would not have been able to use his consciousness to casually scan him and find that his aura was different and thus looked at him twice more. As a result, Luo Hong naturally recognized Xiangzi and was shocked. The next moment, the young cultivator that Xiangzi transformed into frowned slightly and looked towards Luo Hong with a solemn expression, obviously sensing the aura that Luo Hong had accidentally leaked. At this time, Luo Hong wanted to change his appearance and hide his identity, but it was too late, so he could only smile bitterly and bow to him from a distance. After seeing Luo Hong, the young man Xiangzi was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered him, and his face showed shock. Obviously, he had already detected Luo Hong's true cultivation. He had achieved this in just 300 years. Even he would be surprised. So, the young man smiled and saluted Luo Hong, and then pretended that nothing had happened and continued to wait for the formation to start. Luo Hong secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although he could fight Zili head on now, the other party was a cultivator at the peak of the early stage of the transformation of the spirit, and he had been in the human world for many years, and had many treasures in his hands. The pressure he brought to him was not comparable to that of ordinary cultivators of the transformation of the spirit. This old ghost's cultivation is the best in the human world. I didn't expect that he is also interested in the secrets of the Wuan Mountains. It seems that I must not be careless. Since he has no intention of communicating, I'd better not take the initiative to get involved with him. After Luo Hong made up his mind, he put away all his contempt and said to Gong Zuhe, who was unhappy beside him, after entering, "Don't leave Luo Mao 100 feet. Got it?" Gong Zuhe, who was still worried about the matter of green bamboo, saw Luo Hong's solemn look and felt an irresistible pressure. Some of his original thoughts disappeared instantly. After more than an hour, the sun had reached noon, and the 5 families' envoys finally took action. They saw that they offered their tokens to the air, and after chanting the spell for a while, 5 dark light beams shot out from the tokens at the same time and hit the black tornado in the distance. Under this stimulation, the black tornado suddenly became more violent, and the whistling wind filled the sky and the earth. But soon, 5 circular gaps appeared at the bottom of the black tornado. When it gradually expanded to a diameter of 3 or 4 feet, a white spiritual light rushed out, along 5 dark light columns, and directly reached the position of the order holder. Bathed in this spiritual light, everyone felt that the surrounding winds had subsided, and the pressure was gone. Go. With the order of the head of the Gong family, everyone simultaneously sacrificed the flying magic tools, followed the spiritual light channel, and rushed straight to the gap in the black tornado. The moment before Luo Hong entered the gap, he activated the hidden Take Su Hurling Fu, and suddenly a thin layer of silver spiritual light covered his entire body. The restrictions of the black wind absolute breath array swept over again and again, but after touching Luo Hong, they passed through his body directly, as if he did not exist. As soon as he passed through the gap, Luo Hong felt a strong wind pushing from his back, trying to blow him away. This was not a change, but a normal situation, so everyone did not panic. In the past, the Gong family cultivators would have been eager to use this strong wind to disperse in order to better search for spiritual medicine. But now that the threat from the Fang family was hanging over their heads, they naturally had to concentrate their forces in one place, so everyone used their own methods to resist the force of the strong wind. At this time, Luo Hong quickly grabbed Gong Zuhe's wrist, gently pulled it, and hugged her in his arms as she cried out. Then he secretly used the power of heaven and earth, and the two of them seemed to fly over the weak water, and fell straight down. When they were 5 feet away from the ground, the strong wind suddenly disappeared, and Luo Hong hugged Gong Zuhe, and fell on a soft grass. "Miss Gong, you can let go," Luo Hong said lightly while looking around. It turned out that this young lady of the Gong family was frightened by the series of changes and was hugging Luo Hong's chest tightly, shivering like a kitten. "Oh, Mr. Luo, where are we here?" Gong Zuhe's pretty face turned red, and she quickly let go of Luo Hong and asked in an attempt to resolve the embarrassment. Luo Hong is now an old demon, so he will not be shaken by this beautiful scene. he said calmly. It should be the outer low peak of Wuhan mountain range. Let's climb to the top of this peak first and see if there are any landmarks around. After trying to activate his spiritual sense, Luo Hong found that he was under great suppression, which could only cover a radius of 100 miles. Although this layer of suppression is like a thin film, Luo Hong felt that he could break through it with a little effort, but it is obvious that after breaking through, it will attract the attack of the formation. Therefore, before the situation is clear, Luo Hong decided to try to restrain his strength. In addition, seeing that Gong Zuhua did not look unusual, he knew that this kind of suppression would not work on cultivators in the key refining stage. After the two of them each sacrificed a wind control talisman, they lightly went to the top of the low peak under their feet, which was almost only covered with green grass. In a short while, Luo Hong arrived at the top of the peak. When he looked towards the center of Wuhan mountain range, his eyes suddenly fixed. In the distance, over the 5 main peaks that were close together and looked like 5 fingers, a huge blood cloud was slowly rotating, and from time to time a blood-colored thunderbolt would fall from the cloud, which looked extremely ominous. This scene was very different from what was recorded in the Gong family's classics. How could this be? Why is the vitality inside the mountain so sparse? Gong Zuhua's face turned pale when she saw the withered grass and trees under the blood cloud. This place was an important foundation of her Gong family. If it was destroyed, it would have a great impact on the Gong family. Let's go and meet up with the others first. After staring for a few breaths, Luo Hong suddenly turned around and headed towards the nearest breath of a Gong family cultivator. In the current situation, Luo Hong thought that his best choice was to hide himself first and see what the blood-crying ancestor did before he could take action. At this moment, in a forest thousands of miles away, the young man Zhang was standing on the treetops, also looking at the blood cloud, with a hint of worry in his eyes, but more of excitement. Hey, brother Zhang, come down quickly, we are ready to go. Suddenly, a Ning family cultivator shouted from under the tree. What's wrong with this guy? He just came in and was in a daze. A female cultivator of the Ning family frowned and said dissatisfiedly, "Ah, here I come." Haha, Zhang just thought of something happy for a while, and I was distracted for a while. I hope you don't blame me. After flying down, the young man Zhang apologized to the female cultivator of the 12th level of key refining with a flattering face. Chapter 549 Black Robe Blood Boy. While the other 4 families were gathering their teams, the monks of the Fang family were sitting cross-legged behind the black-robed monks, with their hands on their backs, and sending their mana with all their strength. Thanks to the secret art of the blood path, they were not blown too far by the strong wind after passing through the gap of the black tornado, so they were able to seize an advantage. Not long after, the black-robed monks' bodies began to emit muffled sounds of bang bang, as if the shackles were opened, and their aura suddenly increased. Almost without distinction, the aura of all the black-robed monks reached the perfect state of the 13th level of key refining. At this time, the monks of the Fang family were pale because of the excessive loss of mana, and they took out the pills from the storage bag and swallowed them while panting. Senior, please. At this moment, the evil smile on the face of the young master of the Fang family was gone. He was seen tremblingly taking out a huge water bag and handing it to the black-robed monk. The other members of the Fang family followed suit and handed out almost the same water bags. You are a good kid. After this, you will definitely be an inner disciple of the Blood Christ sect. The black-robed monk laughed strangely, stretched out a red skinny hand with sharp nails, grabbed the water bag, bit off the stopper and drank it. Suddenly, the bloody smell spread, and drops of bright red liquid flowed from the corners of the black-robed monk's mouth. It turned out that the water bag was not filled with water, but the essence of the human race. Just when the young master of the Fang family was secretly relieved, suddenly a cry came from the sound of drinking blood. Young master, help me. Let go. Hearing this, the Fang family monks couldn't help but turn their heads to look, and saw a black-robed monk who was not satisfied with the essence of the water bag, or was simply ferocious, and actually grabbed the Fang family monk in front of him, and bit off half of his neck. At this time, he was greedily sucking the essence of the Fang family monk. In just 2 or 3 breaths, he took his life. Seeing this horrifying scene, The remaining Fang family monks couldn't help but step back a few steps, staring at the black-robed monk in front of them in panic, fearing that they would be the next to suffer. This blood boy was a little too hasty after all, and his ferocity is much greater than usual. It is indeed difficult to control him with this body. After the black-robed monk in front of the Fang family's young master drank up the blood in the water bag, a flash of blood in his eyes calmed down the black-robed monk, who had attacked and hurt people. But seeing that he looked ready to pounce at any time, it was known that he had not drunk enough. Boy, one less person should not affect your mission, right? Don't worry, senior. Even without the help of the Song family, I have the confidence to lead my clansmen to kill the monks of the other 3 families. The Fang family's young master bowed and clasped his hands in reply. He didn't dare to complain at this time, because after drinking the blood, the cultivation of these black-robed monks had been improved to the initial stage of foundation building. The young master of the Fang family knew that, if he showed any cowardice, or made the other party unhappy, he would also become the other party's blood food. Very good, then I'll leave it to you. After the black-robed monk looked at the young master of the Fang family meaningfully, he led the other black-robed monks to the center of the mountain range, and went under the blood cloud. It was not until the figures of these people disappeared in the forest, that the monks of the Fang family dared to move their feet. Young master, should we go to meet the Song family first, or just choose one to kill? Fang Hu, who was quite strong, was only second to Fang Bichen, the young master, in terms of cultivation, so he became the second person in the team. Humph, seeing Song Junlin's hypocritical behavior, I almost feel sick. Let's ignore him, and just destroy the Ma family first. The Ma family mainly engaged in the refining and sale of magic tools in Liaozhou, and was the most likely to have accidents. Therefore, Fang Bichen wanted to bite off this most difficult bone, when his family was in the best condition. After making the decision, Fang Bichen couldn't help but look at the tribe member who died tragically. After sighing in his heart, he sat down cross-legged and used the elixir to quickly recover his mana. At the foot of Daking Mountain, Luo Hong and Gong Zuhe had already joined the rest of the Gong family's cultivators. The original team of 18 people was now missing one person. Why is Kaiming so slow? Did something happen? Gong Yanwen said with a worried look on his face, and it seemed that he had a good relationship with the missing tribe member. Before coming in, the head of the Gong family cast a secret spell on each of them. As long as they input their mana into the water drop mark on their wrists, they can sense the person who has also activated the mark. However, no matter how everyone activated the mark at this time, Gong Kaiming did not respond at all, and it was obvious that he was in danger. We can't wait any longer. We must join the other 3 families as soon as possible, otherwise the strength of the Fang family will be enough to defeat us one by one. Although Gong Piwu was arrogant, he was not a brainless person. He knew that it would be difficult for them to fight against the elite soldiers of the Fang family alone. That's right, let's follow the original plan and move towards the Song family in the northwest. Although Gong Zuhe felt reluctant, she didn't want to wait any longer. Because when the Black Wind Absolute Breath formation was activated, the positions of the 5 families were fixed. So according to the plan made by the 4 families, they planned to let the 2 neighboring families meet first, and then join forces, to actively cause trouble for the Fang family. Since the Gong family and the Song family are neighbors, they now have to meet with the Song family first. Hearing this, everyone in the Gong family nodded. However, just as they were about to leave, Luo Hong suddenly said, I think the matter of reunion is not urgent now. Instead, we should first find out what happened to Brother Kaiming. If someone else had said this, Gong Piwu would have retorted, but now it was Luo Hong who spoke. After hesitating for a moment, he asked in confusion, why do you say that, Brother Luo? I believe that before you came, you have already read the classics of the clan about the Wuhan mountain range, so you must know that the blood cloud should not exist, and there is no existence in the periphery that can kill Brother Kaiming. Luo Hong said to everyone slowly. Brother Luo means that due to the abnormal change of the blood cloud, something that we are not aware of, but can threaten our lives has appeared in the mountains at this time. Gong Yanwen's reading of the sage book was not in vain, and he soon understood Luo Hong's meaning. That's right. The Fang family is not near us, so they can't rush over in a short time. But the thing that killed Brother Kaiming should be nearby. If they attack again, when we know nothing about it, I'm afraid we will suffer. Luo Hong's advice was not just out of kindness, but because he had discovered the thing that killed Gong Kaiming with his spiritual sense, and the other party's appearance was obviously closely related to the blood cloud. So, he decided to look for clues from them first. Chapter 550, Evil Monster. Luo Hong's words were well reasoned, and no one wanted to follow Gong Kaiming's footsteps, so they immediately gave up the idea of reuniting with the Song family. Gong Zuhe had other opinions on this, but she could only hesitate at this moment. But Brother Luo, how can we find Kaiming's whereabouts? There are hidden dangers all around, and it is not easy for us to search separately. Although Gong Yanwen agreed with Luo Hong's proposal, he also knew that it would be a foolish move to let everyone disperse at this time, so he frowned. Brother Yanwen, don't worry, Luo has other ways to search. After that, Luo Hong patted the spirit beast bag on his waist and summoned the transparent spirit rat. This rat was born with the ability to hide, and with its cultivation of a level 5 spirit beast, a group of cultivators in the key refining period naturally could not see through its true and false. This spirit rat of mine has a very keen sense of smell. If something happens to fellow Daoist Kaiming, there will definitely be a smell of blood, and it will definitely not be hidden from it. This was of course Luo Hong's excuse. His spiritual sense had already found the place where the accident happened, and he only needed the spirit rat to pretend to lead the way. With the help of the wind control talisman, a cultivator in the key refining stage could run on the ground at the speed of a galloping horse. It didn't take long for everyone to climb over a low mountain and come to a gravel beach sandwiched between two stone peaks. After walking along the river bank for a while, everyone found bloodstains in the water. There was no doubt that Gong Kaiming had indeed been in trouble, and the place where the accident happened was not far upstream. Everyone be careful, the smell here is very mixed, and I'm afraid there is more than one threat. In Luo Hong's spiritual sense, 6 blood-red monsters that looked like foxes and dogs were quietly approaching them, obviously treating them as prey. Well, everyone take out your magic weapons, be alert and don't leave the team. Gong Pi-Wu also felt the danger and immediately told everyone with a serious face. Perhaps because of everyone's vigilance, the 6 monsters actually suppressed their desire for flesh and blood and followed everyone from a distance. Until they came to the place where Gong Kaiming was killed, they had no intention of rushing over. On the stone beach, a pile of scattered debris was scattered in the pool of blood. Only the clothes and broken magic weapons of the Gong family monks could prove that these were all left by Gong Kaiming. Seeing the death of the same clan monks so tragically, everyone was afraid and angry. Even Gong Yanwen, who had always been gentle to others, clenched his teeth with trembling hands. Damn it, if I meet those beasts, I will definitely avenge Brother Kaiming. The traces at the scene were very obvious. This must have been done by the man-eating monsters. Someone swore angrily. Hey, someone come and help collect his body first. Gong Pi-Wu shook his head and was about to step forward. Wait, Brother Pi-Wu, there is something wrong with that pool of blood. The terrain here is flat and unobstructed. Even if there were monsters active here before, there shouldn't be any monster energy stagnating. In my opinion, your chance for revenge should be right in front of you. As soon as the voice fell, Luo Hong threw out 3 small fireballs. There were 3 boom 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 explosions, and the last trace of Gong Kaiming in this world was wiped out by the flames. The next moment, a sturdy blood-colored monster jumped out of the red flames, with only a few burn marks on its body. As cultivators, everyone has more or less seen monsters, but the fox-like and dog-like monster in front of them still made many people gasp. The monster's skin seemed to have been peeled alive, revealing bright red muscles and pale bones, like a resurrected corpse, looking extremely evil and terrifying. Is this a wind fox dog? How could it become like this? Gong Yanwen stared at the bloody monster with his eyes, and said in disbelief, no way. The wind fox dog is only a first level lower level monster, and this guy's aura is obviously that of a first level high level monster. Gong Pi-Wu sacrificed the flying sword in front of his chest and said in shock, Brother Pi-Wu, there are 3 more here. I also have 4 here. No, there are 2 blocking the way from behind. Brother P-Woo, we seem to be surrounded. As the crowd exclaimed, more and more mutant wild fox dogs appeared in their sight, and their number was so large that they seemed to overwhelm the Gong family. Don't panic, they are all first level monsters, we can deal with them. Compared with those tribesmen who lived in Chianggang Peak, Gong Pi-Woo was obviously much more experienced. He sacrificed the flying sword without fear and attacked the nearest bloody monster. Luo Hong was not in a hurry to attack at this time. After all, if he killed these monsters directly, he would not be able to see the tricks. After 2 months of instruction from Luo Hong, Gong Pi-Woo's sword control skills had obviously improved. Now, just a simple attack had a power of over 100 degrees. Logically speaking, a higher level monster of only 1 level should temporarily avoid the sharp edge at this time. But this mutant wind fox dog that jumped out of the pool of blood did not avoid it at all, ignoring the attacking flying sword, and pounced on Gong Pi-Woo's body. The next moment, the flying sword slashed on the back of the monster, and then there was a sound of metal clashing. The monster's body looked broken, but in fact it seemed to be made of fine iron. Even with Gong Pi-Woo's top grade flying sword, it only cut into it a few inches, and did not split it in half. Seeing the monster's bloody mouth getting closer and closer, Gong Pi-Woo snorted coldly, played a protective talisman, and then drove the flying sword again. In his opinion, with the dual protection of the protective spirit shield and the talisman, he would be able to kill the monster before it touched him. However, when the mutant wild fox dog was about to pounce, a cloud of blood mist suddenly gushed out of its mouth and covered Gong Pi-Woo's protective spirit shield. Suddenly, a sizzling sound came from the protective spirit shield, and the spirit shield was corroded and shaky. The next moment, the bloody mouth of the mutant wild fox dog bit down, and Gong Pi-Woo's protective spirit shield was instantly broken, and the water curtain supported by the talisman only lasted for a breath. It's over. Seeing that the fangs of the mutant wild fox dog were about to tear open his neck, Gong Pi-Woo's mind suddenly turned pale. At this moment, a loud bang came from not far away, and the mutant wild fox dog's head exploded like a watermelon. After falling to the ground, it twitched twice, but it was deader than dead. Thank you for your help, Brother Luo. I never thought that this demon beast could destroy my protective spirit shield. I almost fell into his trap. Although Gong Pi-Woo was extremely grateful at this moment, he had no time to talk to Luo Hong. After calming down, he immediately commanded everyone to fight the enemy. From the brief fight just now, he realized that, although these mutated wind fox dogs were tough, their strength had not increased much. As long as he was careful that they would trade injuries for lives, it would not be difficult to deal with them. Mr. Luo, aren't you going to take action? Gong Zuhua saw that Luo Hong had been staring at the headless corpse in a daze after saving Gong Pi-Woo, so she couldn't help asking. I was delayed by something during the day, and there is still a chapter before 12 o'clock in the evening. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.